The ancient castle felt like a giant beast emitting a desolate aura. Once Zhao Xiang led Long Chen into the palace, they weren't checked or questioned. Zhao Xiang simply greeted the guards and walked in with Long Chen. Once they were inside, Long Chen saw that the entire castle was supported by a huge formation. The spiritual qi inside was several times denser than outside, which made Long Chen once more sigh at Pill Valley's wealth. Long Chen saw that this place, which was a holy land to alchemists, was bustling with activity. He saw quite a few young disciples walking around, but they all seemed to be in a rush and ignored him. The thing that shocked him was that some of them were extremely young. Some only looked to be 16 or 17, and their cultivation bases were only in the meridian opening realm. Pill Valley cares about alchemy, not cultivation base. The younger the disciple, the more potential that can be unlocked while they're in Pill Valley. And the lower their cultivation bases, the more room for their spiritual strength to grow. So it's normal for you to see disciples with low cultivation bases. However, the competition between disciples is intense. Those who can enter Pill Valley are all alchemy geniuses. But even geniuses become ordinary people here. Geniuses are all used to being arrogant existences worshipped by others, so when they come here, they all go all out cultivating. There's practically no need to encourage them. You see how busy they are. Even friends will only nod toward you in passing. That's because they feel that speaking is a waste of time. They need to spend all their time on cultivation, explained Zhao Xiang. Wow, is there a need to go all out like this? Long Chen was stunned. They didn't even want to waste the time to speak? Long Chen felt like he had been training hard, but now in comparison, it seemed that he was a slacker. They have no choice. Sometimes, just honor and glory are enough to drive a person to do their best. Everyone wants to stand above others and not be trampled on. Within Pill Valley, alchemy is everything, so they have no choice but to cultivate their alchemy arts to the peak. As long as your alchemy arts are great enough, you can get whatever you want. Furthermore, alchemists walk a different path from ordinary cultivators. They don't need to remain hasty. As long as you become strong enough, you can get as many resources and beauties as you want. You won't even need to ask, they'll simply flock toward you. You understand? Zhao Xiang winked at Long Chen. The benefits were this great? It seemed living in Pill Valley would be amazing. For normal cultivators, once they reached the Xiantian realm, they could theoretically start producing progeny. And that wouldn't stop them from advancing in the future. But the majority of cultivators wouldn't start doing so immediately after reaching the Xiantian realm. That was because the higher the realm of the parents, the greater the purity of their spirit blood, and the greater chance their progeny would inherit their bloodline and be termed geniuses. That was why most cultivators would cultivate until they reached their peak before they considered getting a partner and creating progeny. For male cultivators, they would usually find one or more Tao companions after reaching the Xiantian realm, but they wouldn't have progeny. For males, becoming Tao companions with someone else wouldn't cause any problems for them. But female cultivators normally wouldn't choose to become Tao companions. This related to problems of the heart. For many men, women were like wealth to be gained, and this satisfied their desire to conquer others. But they didn't have that many real emotions toward this act. But for women, when it came to these matters, especially during their first time, it caused large ripples in their hearts. Normally, they would only dual cultivate with the one they loved. This was different from the attitude of male cultivators. As for what was different, it was that one cared about the heart, while the other cared about appearances. For a woman to love a man represented a large change in their mental realm. Losing their virginity would definitely cause their mental realm to become chaotic for a while. Cultivation was like rowing against the tide. If you weren't moving forward, you were going back. So for men, dual cultivation wouldn't normally cause that big of an impact, but it would cause quite the impact for women. Unless the woman simply didn't love the man and was also simply doing it for his looks, in which case she could also get the same benefits. But normally, the gains didn't make up for the losses. But alchemists were different. Even women didn't need to care that much about that aspect. As long as their talent and comprehension were high enough, they didn't need to necessarily maintain a perfectly clear heart. That was why Pill Valley didn't prohibit their disciples from doing such things. Zhao Xiang was telling Long Chen this to give him motivation. After all, he was a man. Zhao Xiang explained Pill Valley's rules and restrictions on the way. It was about the same as any sect. They quickly arrived at a stately building. This was the Pill Management Department, a place where all the new disciples went to register themselves. They were also in charge of all the missions inside Pill Valley. With Zhao Xiang leading the way, the process was very simple. Long Chen simply handed over his badge, and the rest was left up to Zhao Xiang. It was quickly handled. Long Chen obtained a new badge, a true disciple badge. This is an inner disciple's badge. It's not that useful and just part of the process. Your goal is the Divine Pill Hall, a place where the elite disciples cultivate. The treatment they get there is 1,000 times better than what an inner disciple will ever get. Pill Valley has millions of outer disciples and over 80,000 inner disciples. As for the Divine Pill Hall, they only have 3,000 disciples. This number never changes. The Divine Pill Hall expels the lower-ranking disciples when new disciples join. Take a look. The next competition for inner disciples to get into the Divine Pill Hall is in 10 days. This competition only occurs once every 2 months, and only the top 1,000 inner disciples are qualified to compete. I was thinking that you should only compete in the competition after this one, but Protector Zhuo said time is pressing. Only by entering the Divine Pill Hall will you receive the best treatment. You're just an inner disciple right now, and Protector Zhuo is only able to give you a few resources. After all, there are those ancient bastards holding us back. But if you join the Divine Pill Hall, all kinds of precious resources will be provided to you, and they won't dare to say a thing. Yes, this disciple understands Protector Zhuo's kindness. Speaking of which, Elder Zhao, have you heard of the second volume of the Nirvana scripture? Will disciple have a chance to train in it? Asked Long Chen. That might be a bit troublesome. The first volume is freely available to any disciple and isn't top secret. But the second volume requires a certain status and position in order to train in it. Most of the time, you have to reach the level of a tower master to learn it. Zhao Xiang shook his head. Even he wasn't qualified to learn the second volume of the Nirvana scripture. Really? Disciples can't learn it? Long Chen couldn't help being disappointed. He had come entirely for the second volume of the Nirvana scripture. If he couldn't learn it, then he would have come for nothing. In truth, disciples can also learn it. But it depends on how outstanding you are. As long as you can put on a stunning enough display, I trust Protector Zhuo will definitely help you obtain it, comforted Zhao Xiang, afraid of him losing motivation. Long Chen passed the next few days in a private room. In it, there were several stacks of jade plates as tall as a grown man, numbering in the thousands. Each of them contained ancient alchemy canons. They recorded alchemy theories or even lost summaries. Some theories were left behind by ancestors and were the result of their life's experience. Idiots, if a person read too many of these, they probably wouldn't even be able to refine pills after. Long Chen was secluded in his room on his own, studying these things. That was because this was related to the competition to join the Divine Pill Hall. The competition had 2 parts, theory and practice. He didn't just need to know how to refine pills, but he also needed to be able to discuss the theory behind the refinement as well. And yet, these things were all personal viewpoints and theories of different people, all based on their own lives and experiences. Yes, it was true that their alchemy arts and theories were novel and innovative. But these things were only suited to themselves. It was like everyone was learning how to paint, and he was trying to paint an image of a landscape. Did showing him paintings of beautiful women help him at all? The most irritating thing was that he needed to know this, and he had to be able to write out his impression and what he learned from reading them. Otherwise, they wouldn't let him pass. Just because he wanted to cook a chicken, did he need to know how a chicken existed? Did they really care about which came first, the chicken or the egg? Unfortunately, there was no way around this. The competition would be testing on this. If he didn't pass the theory aspect, he wouldn't even get to go to the refining portion. After 10 days of studying, Long Chen had an urge to vomit. Even with his immense spiritual strength, memorizing all these things gave him a headache. Furthermore, some of these theories were fundamentally flawed, but he still had to memorize them. He had to be wrong with them. That was because the competition would test this, and he had to reply within the scope of these texts to get his answer marked correct. This was Long Chen's first time having to study such irritating alchemy knowledge. Zhao Xiang was a bit worried to see Long San come out in just 10 days. For most cultivators, memorizing all these theories in 2 months would be impressive. But 10 days? That was a bit unbelievable. Zhao Xiang was in charge of Long San, and so his station would rise and fall according to Long San's result. Looking worried, he asked, "How do you feel?" "I feel all right, and I've pretty much memorized them all. It should be no problem." Long Chen rubbed his weary face. For the second volume of the Nirvana scripture, he had no choice but to go all out. "Good. Don't feel too much pressure. Even if you fail this time, you'll definitely pass the next one," comforted Zhao Xiang. Zhao Xiang led Long Chen toward the pill management department. Once they were in, Long Chen saw that the inside was packed with people already. "Long San?" He had only just walked in when a stunned voice rang out. "Long San?" Long Chen was startled. Someone actually recognized him here? Turning toward the voice, he saw a young man amongst this crowd of close to 1,000 disciples. Each one of them had a small table in front of them, like they were scholars about to take a test. "Sorry, you are?" Long Chen didn't recognize him. "Shut up. Who said you could speak so loudly here?" A Jade Core disciple sternly shouted at him. This disciple was already quite old, so his temper wasn't good. Long Chen frowned. The Jade Core disciple glared at Long Chen, and Long Chen almost couldn't help but slap him in the face. He had an urge to curse this disciple, but he didn't say anything. Now wasn't the time to start being arrogant. Silently walking around that disciple, he walked toward the person who knew him. "Long San, sit." "Sorry, I made you get scolded," apologized that person quietly. Zhao Xiang just happened to see the sight of Long Chen quietly turn away from the disciple who had scolded him so sternly. Seeing that he didn't dare to reply, he shook his head. "This Long San's character is too timid. It's not good for us. I'll have to report it to Protector Zhua," thought Zhao Xiang to himself as he left. Long Chen didn't recognize this man at all, so he couldn't help but find it strange. "Long San, after winning the championship in the Eastern Wasteland, you probably forgot this little one." The disciple bitterly smiled. "I think I remember. You were in the competition too," said Long Chen, coming to a sudden comprehension. In truth, this comprehension was just guesswork. He still didn't recognize this person at all. He put his answer in a questioning tone to avoid things becoming awkward if he was wrong. "Yes, I'm Li Kang. Do you remember me now?" That person was happy that Long Chen recognized him. He didn't even know he had just fallen for Long Chen's trick. Long Chen had no idea who Li Kang was. Supposedly, he had been in the Eastern Wastelands competition as well. Li Kang recognized Long Chen, but Long Chen didn't recognize him. "Long San, why did it take you so long to come? It's been many years." "Don't even mention it. It's depressing. How have the other people from the Eastern Wasteland been doing here? Did anyone manage to get some strong support?" Long Chen changed the subject. "Only after coming did we realize that our so-called talent was nothing here. We were just green leaves coming to show off before the flowers of the Central Plains." Li Kang bitterly smiled. The disciples who came from the Eastern Wasteland are mostly outer disciples. They probably won't get promoted in their lifetimes. As for me, I'm not doing too bad. After 3 years, I've finally managed to get the qualifications for the Divine Pill Hall trial. Amongst these people, I rank 987th. In other words, there's pretty much no hope of me passing. But even just taking the test will improve my standing amongst the inner disciples. If I didn't take the test, the others would look down on me all day. Really, it's this bad? What about that female disciple? What's her name again? Long Chen thought of a certain person. Duan Tianxiao. Her talent is very good, and she managed to get into the Divine Pill Hall. In truth, she helped me out quite a bit to be promoted into an inner disciple. But after getting in the Divine Pill Hall, she has become distant from me. Perhaps our statuses are no longer similar, sighed Li Kong. People strove for the top, while water always flowed to the bottom. Those who stood at different heights ran in different circles. This was understandable. You two flies, stop buzzing. It's annoying. If you don't want to take the test, you can scram. Stop disturbing others. As Long Chen and Li Kong quietly whispered, another disciple to the side who had had his eyes closed suddenly glared at them. Long Chen looked at him and saw that he was glaring at him disdainfully. It seemed that his ranking amongst inner disciples was very high. Perhaps he had a high chance of getting promoted. Long Chen cursed. If this was inside the Shintian Dao sect, he'd have long since slapped such a person to death. But he had nothing to say now. It seemed wherever he went he would encounter countless idiots. Even if he didn't cause trouble, others would find trouble for him. Silence! Just at this moment, a cold shout rang out, and 8 elders walked in, all soul transformation experts. The 8 elders were all wearing stern expressions, as though everyone here owed them money. These people were in charge of the trial, and they were here to prevent cheating. Their eyes were all as sharp as an eagle's. Long Chen shut his mouth and found his position. "Who is Long San?" asked one of the elders. "Disciple is present." Long Chen hastily stood. "Show me your badge. I have to check it." This surprised Long Chen. It seemed that this test was very stringent. Although his identity had already been confirmed when he had walked in, they checked him again. The elder examined his badge closely and then nodded. "You were added to this trial late, so you have to be checked stringently. You don't need to feel any pressure." Long Chen's eyes brightened. He knew that this elder was on his side. Zhao Xiang had said everything should go smoothly. It was easy to tell who was on his side. The others all looked like saying an extra word was too much work, so the ones speaking to Long Chen were on his side. But these elders were only in charge of overseeing the test, and they couldn't help him. If he cheated, he would immediately be expelled. In fact, he would be directly kicked out of Pill Valley. Pill Valley's test was 100% fair and did not allow any cheating. Beast hides were quickly distributed. Long Chen couldn't help but bitterly smile. Wasn't this just like the secular world's imperial exams? Long Chen looked at it, and as expected, it was about the things he had studied during these days. It was actually very simple. But the final question was a bit difficult. The question was to list the various medicinal pills that could be refined based on the given medicinal ingredients. The more they could list, the more points they would get. Long Chen couldn't help but feel a struggle with this question. With these many medicinal ingredients, he had over 1,000 pill formulas that could be written from his pill sovereign memories. But many of those pill formulas no longer existed in this world. He didn't dare to randomly write them. He had an urge to use his spiritual strength to investigate how many pill formulas others wrote, but those 8 elders were like hawks watching their every move. He truly didn't dare to do so. What to do? Too many is no good, and too few might get me eliminated. Long Chen suddenly had a thought. He stealthily picked out a booger and wiped the mucus along the edge of the beast hide. He used it as a mirror to look around silently. Turning that corner, he managed to see what the person who had scoffed at him had written. 1, 2, 27 in total. Alright, that's not bad. Long Chen managed to see what that fellow had written barely through the mucus. He couldn't see the exact pill formulas, but he was able to see how many lines he had written. Achoo! Long Chen suddenly sneezed, and his mucus ended up all over his beast hide. He hastily began to wipe it off. What are you doing? One of the elders suddenly appeared behind Long Chen like a ghost. Sorry, disciple had to fly over the sea for 3 years, facing the constant sea winds. Pill Valley's spiritual chi is too dense, and my nose is sensitive. I'm sorry. Long Chen apologized as his sneeze had disturbed the disciples around him. He had no way around this. He had noticed those old fellows were getting suspicious and getting close behind him. That was why he had sneezed, to wipe away the proof. The elder stared at him coldly, but Long Chen looked back at him without the slightest fear. Seeing his expression without the slightest fear or panic, he didn't say anything else. He had only been a bit suspicious in any case. You want to play mental warfare with me? Long Chen sneered inside and continued answering the questions. That fellow beside him had seemed so confident before, so his ranking should be near the top. But he was still cautious. He only wrote 53 pill formulas, just double of that fellow. They had 2 hours to answer their questions. Long Chen had long since finished, but he continued until the very end to hand in his scrolls with everyone else. What? When the elder saw Long Chen's scroll, when he saw the answer to his last question, he was absolutely stunned. "Ha, excellent." The elder on his side laughed. Long Chen knew he was indicating that he had probably gotten first on this test. But the results were not immediately announced. Instead, they switched locations into a lounge where over 1,000 refining platforms had been provided. Each platform was 10 meters wide. The furnaces and cauldrons had already been arranged, and the pill formula was under the furnace. The disciples who had come here were mostly ones that had taken this test many, many times. They were already used to this scene. But when they arrived at their spots and saw the pill formula in front of them, all their expressions changed. Impossible! Long Chen looked at the pill formula and also couldn't help being stunned. A 9th-tier medicinal pill, the soul-gathering heart-tempering pill. This was a must-have pill for Jade Core cultivators. It made their mental realms clear and expelled any foreign influences. Damn it, I only trained in the methods to refine 8th-tier medicinal pills before this. I didn't refine a 9th-tier pill for them to see. Long Chen felt quite a bit of pressure. Let the refinement begin. Just as all the disciples despaired, an elder announced the start of the trial. Disciple gives up. Immediately, a portion of the disciples directly gave up. These disciples were indignant. Many of their cultivation bases were at the Foundation Forging realm or below. Some were only at the Sea Expansion realm. They obviously couldn't refine a 9th-tier pill. According to normal standards, a 9th-tier pill could only be refined by a Jade Core expert. But in Pill Valley, those standards were overthrown. Pill Valley always changed the difficulty of the pill to be refined. Sometimes it would be easy, sometimes it would be difficult. But this trial was held every 2 months, so failing this time wasn't terrible. As long as their ranking didn't fall out of the top 1,000, they could try again. Those people who had given up could only blame their bad luck and prepare to test their luck next time. They knew that just refining 9th-tier medicinal ingredients into powders was their limit. As for refining a true 9th-tier pill, it was a joke. Their spiritual strength couldn't handle such exhaustion. For almost half the contestants to leave at once didn't surprise the soul transformation experts at all. They were indifferent to this, clearly having long since expected such a thing. The remaining alchemists had bitter expressions. They had stayed behind, mostly by thickening their faces. They were quite sure they couldn't refine it. There were 70 to 80 Jade Core alchemists amongst the people being tested. But they felt even more panicked than the Foundation Forging disciples. Their higher cultivation bases also signified their ages far surpassed these people. Within Pill Valley, the younger you were and the lower your cultivation base, the greater room for growth you had. Other sects' disciples did their best to raise their cultivation bases, but Pill Valley's disciples did their best to suppress their cultivation bases from growing. The lower their cultivation bases, the easier it would be to comprehend certain alchemy techniques, and the more solid their foundation would be. Once their cultivation bases were higher, it would be difficult to fix the fundamental flaws in their alchemy. It was like an adult and a youth had the same talent. The younger one would definitely be able to adapt easier, because their minds were still flexible. Once these Jade Core disciples reached the soul transformation realm, their alchemy arts would no longer be up to par with Pill Valley's standards for people of their cultivation base. They would be expelled from Pill Valley and sent to work in the Pill Towers without any chance of returning to cultivate in Pill Valley. Although they were doing their best to suppress their cultivation bases, refining pills meant using their core flame, and that was a passive form of cultivation in and of itself. It was impossible for them to not advance eventually. These Jade Core disciples looked young, but in truth, even the youngest was in his 50s. His cultivation base was about to reach the peak of the Jade Core realm. Once he broke through to soul transformation, he would be expelled. Long Chen looked around. Seeing how nervous everyone else was about this pill, he relaxed quite a bit. If their expressions had been relaxed, he would have felt much more pressure. All of them began taking out their pill flames and warming their furnaces. All their movements were identical. If the outside world's alchemists were to come here, they would definitely die of envy. That was because all these disciples' pill flames were earth flames. It had to be known that in the eastern wasteland, the earth flame Long Chen had obtained had been the envy of all. Even the pill tower hadn't had an earth flame, or the Chai and Fong families' heads wouldn't have wanted to kill him to take his earth flame. Just thinking about it made him sigh. Long Chen wasn't quite able to understand how Pill Valley was so rich but the eastern wasteland's pill tower was so poor. Why weren't they willing to give out a few earth flames? Otherwise, the Chai and Fong's family heads wouldn't have turned against him, and their fates might have changed. At this time, people were already starting to refine their ingredients, and Long Chen didn't tarry. To be low-key, he used the same alchemy techniques as all of them. However, he couldn't be too complacent. He had to show his value. Zhuo Tianxiang and the others would only have viewed him importantly if he was valuable, and that was his only chance at obtaining the Nirvana scripture. Long Chen's pill flames suddenly began to grow stronger. He was starting to burn his spiritual strength to increase the power of his pill flame. A terrifying heat rose, causing the surrounding people to jump. What a flowery trick! How could a foundation forging disciple refine a 9th-tier medicinal pill? He couldn't possibly possess the soul energy required, sneered some Jade Core disciples. The foundation forging disciples present all felt that they had pretty much no hope. They were simply doing this to experience the refinement of this pill. They had no hopes of forming a pill. Most importantly, they wanted to see if others could refine this pill. According to reason, a foundation forging disciple's spiritual strength should have no problem refining the medicinal ingredients, and it should have no problem during the pill refinement process. It was only at the final moment that they would stumble. By the time they were about to condense the pill, they would have no more spiritual strength. The final part, condensing the pills, took the most energy. Normally, alchemists would reserve 50% or more of their spiritual strength to control that final burst of energy. For foundation forging disciples, just refining the ingredients would use up over half their energy. Without using up that much, it would be impossible to extract the essence within those tough ingredients. For Long San, someone only at the foundation forging realm, to actually start wasting his spiritual strength to boost the power of his pill flame, it was viewed as making things even worse for himself. Despite knowing that he had no chance of succeeding, he still wanted to draw attention to himself. Even that elder on his side who had spoken to him was startled. The higher-ups had told him to help Long San as much as possible, but he couldn't figure out Long San's current actions. The competition's difficulty was already so high, but he was making it even harder for himself. For it to be hard wasn't bad, nor was it unfair. If it was easy, everyone would have good results, and the top 3 would advance. And if it was difficult, all their results would be bad, and it would still be the top 3 that would advance. In any case, 3 people would be joining the Divine Pill Hall, and the 3 lowest-ranking members of the Divine Pill Hall would be kicked out. Disciples that were kicked out of the Divine Pill Hall weren't simply allowed to try again. They would be forced out of Pill Valley and sent to the Pill Towers. If you weren't strong enough, then even once you entered the Divine Pill Hall, you would only get 2 months. If you didn't advance enough in that time and were ranked in the bottom 3, then you would only ever get those 2 months in the Divine Pill Hall. It was precisely because of this high difficulty that all of Pill Valley's disciples went all out cultivating their alchemy arts. Even the Divine Pill Hall's disciples were in danger. But Long Chen's current actions were very foolish, and people couldn't comprehend what he was doing. However, with so many people present, even the people on his side couldn't warn him. They could only watch. Boosting his pill flame with his spiritual strength was like adding oil to fire. The power of his earth flame roared. One reason Long Chen did this was to show off his power, and another was to purify the medicinal ingredients. That way, his chances of succeeding in this refinement would be higher. During this time, if he hadn't come to Pill Valley, his alchemy arts would have been wasting away. during the foundation forging realm, he hadn't refined many medicinal pills to assist his cultivation. If he hadn't been doing that stupid studying, he really might be worried whether or not he could refine a 9th-tier medicinal pill. A bang came from his medicinal furnace, and he poured all his medicinal powders inside, sealing the furnace. He's sealed the furnace already? The other disciples were all startled. No one else had even refined half their medicinal ingredients yet. Is it amazing to exhaust your spiritual strength faster than everyone else? Do you want to show off? Sneered a Jade Core disciple not far from him. This competition did not prevent disciples from speaking. As long as they didn't maliciously try to distract them, the people overseeing the competition wouldn't care. Long Chen lowered his head and acted like he couldn't hear that person. He had to act like a good student, an obedient child. This was very important. That was why since arriving at Pill Valley, whenever someone provoked or even cursed him, he would always act very timid. This was what he wanted. Just as the fastest Jade Core disciples had finished refining their medicinal ingredients and were preparing to seal their furnaces, a rumbling sound suddenly came from Long Chen's furnace. He's finished already? Those disciples were all shocked. Only now did they realize that while his pill flame was like a blooming lotus wrapped all around his furnace, his spiritual strength hadn't weakened at all. Instead, it gushed forth like a tsunami, increasing the power of his pill flame to its peak. It was no wonder he finished his refinement so fast. Those disciples that had mocked him were now staring at him lifelessly. Even the elders overseeing this, the ones whose expressions looked like they were frozen in eternal ice, were shocked. Long Chen's spiritual strength was shockingly vast, practically endless. The rumbling sound continued like a monster was struggling within, trying to break free. Now's the critical moment. Many disciples were focused on him now. The fluctuations coming from his pill furnace suddenly began to weaken, but this was the calm before the storm, the dark before the light. 99% of pills that failed were ruined here. Boom. His pill furnace violently shook and terrifying energy spurted out of it. If at this time, the alchemist's spiritual strength was not strong enough, they wouldn't be able to suppress this berserk energy. Once this energy escaped their control, all their efforts would be ruined. Even if the pill formed, it would be a garbage pill. A spiritual hand slammed into the pill furnace, sealing it tight. It was like an unmoving mountain and was extremely domineering. Heavens, he still has the energy to use a soul art now? Just how much spiritual strength does he possess? All the disciples were shocked. For most disciples, their souls would be exhausted at this point. They would need to form spiritual seals around the furnace in advance to seal the berserk energy. But Long Chen hadn't prepared anything. He had just slammed a spiritual hand down when the energy had been about to burst, completely suppressing it. That was too arrogant, wasn't it? Long Chen slowly opened his furnace, revealing 9 round medicinal pills calmly lying within. He couldn't help but shake his head. Seeing Long Chen shaking his head, the disciples were startled. It was a failure? But it hadn't looked like one. Only 3 rings? Long Chen took out one of the 9 pills, revealing it only had 3 rings. The rest only had 2 rings. After working so hard, he had only refined a 3-ring pill. That disappointed him. Had his alchemy arts regressed? Or was it due to the curse? He hadn't held back much just now, having used about 80% of his true ability. He had thought that even if he didn't refine a top-grade pill, it should be no problem refining a 9-ring high-grade pill. But either he had overestimated himself or underestimated the difficulty of refining the soul-gathering heart-tempering pill. He couldn't even tell if it was because of the curse. That was why he was a bit stunned. What a show-off. Countless disciples almost coughed up blood from seeing Long Chen's disappointed expression. For the foundation forging disciples, just forming a pill would be a huge success, even if it was just a garbage pill. As for the Jade Core disciples, originally they had felt that just refining a low-grade soul-gathering heart-tempering pill would be enough. If they refined a middle-grade one, they would be mostly assured of getting in the top 3. They hadn't even thought about refining a high-grade one. For Long Chen to actually sigh with disappointment after refining a 3-ring pill was truly unbearable. It was definitely bullying. Pay attention to your mental state. You are alchemists. With such a mentality, what kind of accomplishments could you possibly have? Shouted a stern elder. Only then did Long Chen come out of his stunned expression. From those envious expressions around him, he seemed to understand something. Congratulations, Long San. You can wait outside. One of the elders who was on his side spoke to Long Chen, a smile on his face. Long Chen's skill far surpassed his expectations. Yes. Long Chen left. According to the rules, he was not supposed to touch anything on the refining platform after finishing his refinement. That was so that the people in charge could confirm there had been no cheating. When Long Chen walked out, he saw Li Kong waiting for him. Long San, why have you come out as well? Did you fail? Don't worry about it, you can try again in 2 months. Temporary failure isn't a big deal, comforted Li Kong. Disciples that get a free pass into the test only get 1 shot. If he wants to try again, he'll have to get in the top 1,000 first. You think he's qualified? Sneered a disciple. Long Chen was enraged inside. How are there so many idiots? It wasn't as if he had provoked these people. He stared icily at the speaker. That person instantly jumped in terror. All his hair stood on end as he felt like he was being stared at by an ancient monster. He involuntarily retreated a few steps. But then he felt that this action was very embarrassing, and his embarrassment turned into anger. Brat, are you asking for a beating? Long Chen ignored him. Pulling Li Kong to an empty corner, he asked, have Chai Liehua and Fang Chang come? Long Chen truly wanted to know this. Fang Chang and Chai Liehua were qualified to come to Pill Valley. He just didn't know if they had. No. Li Kong shook his head. I feel like they definitely know about the situation over here, which is why they don't want to come. The 2 of them are peak geniuses in a place like the Eastern Wasteland. But if they came to Pill Valley, they would only be able to crawl at other people's feet. They definitely don't want such a thing. Long Chen nodded. The Hua, Chai, and Fang families had been in charge of the Eastern Wasteland's Pill Tower. The Hua family had been destroyed, while the Chai and Fang family heads had been killed by Long Chen. Fang Chang and Chai Liehua had very likely become the heads of their respective families, being the local rulers of the Eastern Wasteland. Long Chen felt like the 2 of them didn't like being constrained. Furthermore, they weren't infatuated with alchemy. By staying in the Eastern Wasteland, it showed that the 2 of them would rather be the heads of a chicken than the back of a bull. Long Chen felt some emotion when he thought of the 2 of them. The 2 of them weren't bad people, and he had been brothers with them. But their 2 family heads had been greedy for his earth flame and tried to kill him. Moreover, he had been the one to kill the 2 of them. At the same time as he had killed them, he had severed his ties with Fang Chang and Chai Liehua. If they were to learn that it was Long Chen who had killed their ancestors, no matter the reason, they wouldn't be able to forgive him. Even if they were so magnanimous as to not get revenge on him, they wouldn't be able to stay brothers. So this relationship had been severed at that time. Hearing that they hadn't come comforted him, as well as disappointed him. This kind of feeling was hard to describe with words. He chatted a bit more with Li Kong. After all, they were like people from the same rural town who had once more reunited. When Li Kong told him about how hard things had been on him in the past 3 years, even his eyes turned red. These 3 years had been rough. After all, this place was Pill Valley. Everyone was advancing as fast as they could, and alchemy was the only thing that mattered. The pressure was great enough to drive a person insane. Without a person to complain to, his grievances all spilled out upon encountering Long Chen. Long Chen was speechless. Within Pill Valley, you had to be prepared to be bullied and to face immense pressure. But at least there was no danger to their lives, so a person should know when to be satisfied. Long Chen had spent these 3 years in a tempest of blood and fire. He had always been struggling at the border between life and death. Therefore, he was the one envious of Li Kang's life. As time passed, more and more disciples finished the test and walked out of the lounge. Once the final disciples left, the elders also came out. The disciples immediately stood orderly and quietly when the elders appeared. Everything became silent. The top 3 disciples of this trial are as follows: Long San, Zhang Yao, and Yu Sijia. Congratulations! Once this was announced, countless eyes turned toward Long Chen, all of them filled with shock. Those people who had mocked him were especially shocked. They had never imagined this brat would be able to charge his way into the divine Pill Hall as soon as he arrived in Pill Valley. Long San, congratulations! Li Kong was also shocked. He hadn't expected Long San to be this outstanding even within Pill Valley. Thanks. If you need anything in the future, just ask. Long Chen patted Li Kong on the shoulder. No matter how he put it, they were from the same place. Helping him out when he could was natural. Li Kong immediately became indescribably grateful. To form a good relationship with one of the Divine Pill Hall's disciples was a huge honor to him. The other 2 disciples who passed were shouting excitedly. They were Jade Core disciples, and this chance had been hard fought by them. One of them even wept silently. The other disciples were envious. After the announcement, they scattered. Long Chen and Li Kong had only just left when they saw Zhao Xiang waiting for them. He immediately smiled upon seeing Long Chen. Long San, congratulations on your first victory. Truly well done, praised Zhao Xiang. His talent far surpassed his expectations. Originally, he had been a bit worried. After all, he had given Long Chen too little time to prepare. And then the trial had been to refine the soul-gathering heart-tempering pill. But Long Chen had taken first place. It could be seen how terrifying his talent was. Let's go. Protector Zhua has already prepared a wine feast for you. Zhao Xiang pulled Long Chen away. In a luxurious palace within Pill Valley, there was a large table packed with delicacies and fine wine. When Long Chen arrived, he jumped in shock. Other than Zhua Tianxiang's group, there was another white-haired elder sitting at the head position. Even Zhua Tianxiang was standing to the side of this elder with the respectful expression. The white-haired man turned to Long Chen. His eyes were electric, seeming to pierce Long Chen's body. It was like all his secrets were laid bare. Not bad, his spiritual strength can be classified as monstrous. It's too bad you didn't notice him earlier. Otherwise, he wouldn't be that much weaker than the Pill Fairy. The elder sighed. Long San, hurry and greet Senior Bishi, said Zhua Tianxiang. Disciple Long San greets Senior Bishi. Long Chen was shocked. This elder's soul energy was terrifying. With just a look, it had felt like he had used a ruler to measure his soul. Furthermore, for Zhua Tianxiang to call this elder senior, it was clear his status was shocking. Long Chen didn't know, but this elder's name was Dan Bishi. He was one of Pill Valley's 12 Grand Elders. He was someone with true authority. Within Pill Valley, although the Valley Master's authority was the greatest, it wasn't absolute. If the 12 Grand Elders were against his orders, they could reject the Valley Master's orders. Amongst the 12 Grand Elders, Dan Bishi was one of the representatives of the radical faction. Long Chen's stunning display had caused Zhua Tianxiang to invite him over. Long San, I saw everything during the trial. If a young person didn't go a bit wild, they would simply waste their youth. If you clearly have the power, how can you allow others to bully you? Said Dan Bishi. But disciple doesn't like fighting. I'd rather be an obedient disciple. It's just my character, said Long Chen shyly. But even with how thick his face was, he felt it reddening slightly. Even he didn't believe his words. That's no good. We'll need to temper his character. Dan Bishi shook his head. Senior Bishi, how about you accept Long San as your titular apprentice? That way Long San will have the confidence and backing to act when he needs to, probed Zhua Tianxiang. That's a good idea. Long San, you are now my titular apprentice. But there's no need to kowtow. If your display satisfies me in the future, we can become formal apprentice and master later, said Dan Bishi. Clearly, with his status, not just anyone could become his apprentice. They wanted him to kowtow? Long Chen cursed inside. But hearing that it wasn't the case relieved him. What are you just standing there for? Shouldn't you hurry up and call Senior Bishi master? Zhao Xiang nudged Long Chen. He was excited. If Long Chen took Dan Bishi as his master, he would be truly rising. Apprentice greets master, said Long Chen helplessly, bowing. Inside, he felt as irritated as if he had just eaten a fly. How had he ended up with such a garbage master? But, Long San, you can go. I still have some things to discuss with them. Dan Bishi nodded and sent Long Chen off. But no one noticed that the moment Long Chen called him master, a faint black chi had appeared on Dan Bishi's forehead. The next morning, an emergency bell rang throughout Pill Valley. Long San, not good. Your master passed away. Zhao Xiang pushed open the door to Long Chen's room with a panicked expression. He died. Long Chen was startled. Hadn't he been perfectly fine yesterday? He had even said that he wanted Long Chen to kowtow to him in the future. How did he die? What happened? Long Chen put on a mournful expression, but he didn't particularly care. I'm not sure about the details. I heard that a problem occurred in his cultivation last night. I don't have the qualifications to learn about such matters, so hurry and come with me. Protector Zhuo wants to see you. Zhao Xiang brought Long Chen directly to a secluded area in the back of Pill Valley. This place was called Crane Cry Mountain. Its meaning was that the dead could fly to heaven on the back of a crane while leaving their cry in the human world. Only experts with the highest authority in Pill Valley could have their ashes buried here. An alchemist's body was not buried within the earth directly. Instead, it was turned to ashes by fire. In their life, they refined heaven and earth. In their death, they refined themselves. This was the best ending for an alchemist. In fact, when alchemists felt themselves reaching the end of their longevity, they would refine themselves with their own pill flame, allowing their soul to merge with heaven and earth. As for alchemists who died suddenly, they needed their close family and friends to send them off with their pill flame. Crane Cry Mountain is a protected region. Zhao Xiang had only just brought Long Chen over when two Life Star experts blocked their way. This is Long San, Senior Bishi's final apprentice. He must be allowed to send his master off, explained Zhao Xiang. Even Zhao Xiang, a Life Star expert, didn't have a high position in Pill Valley. That was because their statuses were not decided by cultivation base, but by whose alchemy skill was greater. So he didn't dare to be the slightest bit rude to these two. Hearing his explanation, one of them walked inside. When he returned, he was shaking his head. You're too late. Senior Bishi's ashes have already been buried. They're still in the midst of the ceremony, so you should leave. Hearing that he had already been turned to ashes, Long Chen was delighted inside. That was a good thing for him. Now he didn't need to kowtow to that dead ghost. Long Chen and Zhao Xiang had no choice but to leave. A few hours later, Zhuo Tianxiang personally came to see Long Chen. Long San, don't grieve. Although Senior Bishi passed away, you are still his apprentice, and you still have his support. I came here to tell you a few things. First of all, your timid character must be changed for me, said Zhuo Tianxiang sternly. But Long Chen had a conflicted expression. He wanted to say he was a naturally well-behaved person. There's no buts. Senior Bishi passed away, causing us to lose one of our members amongst the 12 Grand Elders. Someone will be promoted to replace him very quickly, and based on the current situation, there are only 2 people qualified to take his spot, and they are both on the side of the conservative faction. This situation isn't favorable to us. Pill Valley's higher-ups don't care about the competition between disciples. They only care about results. If you continue being a coward, let me tell you, you won't even be able to calmly cultivate. All kinds of people will cause all kinds of problems for you, and once you fall into the bottom 3 rankings, Pill Valley's iron rules will still kick you out, and no one will be able to save you, said Zhuo Tianxiang coldly. You mean if anyone wants to bully me, I have to counterattack? Said Long Chen nervously. No, you're not counterattacking. You must be unbridled and arrogant. Do you understand how to do that? With your current power and with your status as Senior Bishi's final apprentice, you have enough capital to be arrogant, said Zhuo Tianxiang. But Master said I'm just an apprentice in name, said Long Chen, lacking confidence. You are no longer a titular apprentice. You are his final apprentice before his death. In fact, you are the apprentice Senior Bishi cared about the most before dying, understand? Said Zhuo Tianxiang profoundly. How could Long Chen not understand? Now that Dan Bishi was dead, they could say whatever they wanted. This was his best shield. Long San, remember. Only useful people can get more resources. And right now, we are lacking manpower. This is a great opportunity for you. If you can grab hold of it, you will soar immediately. If you can't, you'll only be able to live a sad life. Think about it yourself. I still have things to do, so if you need anything, you can go ask Zhao Xiang. After saying that, Zhuo Tianxiang fled hastily as if he really was busy. It seemed Dan Bishi's death had been quite a blow to their side. Long San, this really is a rare opportunity. It's time for you to show your skills. However, let me warn you that Pill Valley is far more complicated than you imagine. The power of the conservative faction far surpasses ours. Within Pill Valley, if you want to have the right to speak, you need to bring out your power. Even the 3,000 disciples of the Divine Pill Hall have the right to vote on Pill Valley's decisions. Although this vote is not absolute and can be overturned, it has power. The Divine Pill Hall's disciples are split into 3 factions. To put it simply, they are the conservative faction, the radical faction, as well as some opportunists who just watch. But even if they're just opportunists, their votes are important. There are many conservative faction disciples in the Divine Pill Hall, and they are powerful. Due to these factions, once you enter the Divine Pill Hall, you will definitely be bullied by others and unable to focus on alchemy or cultivation. Your accomplishments might just end right there, and once you're squeezed out, you won't have another chance. That's why Protector Zhuo's words are absolutely correct. You not only need to counterattack, but you must also be unbridled. If you only knock them down as they come, do you know how much energy you'll waste in the end being entangled by them? You must be arrogant, you must be aggressive, you must kill one to warn 100. You have to make it so no one dares to provoke you. That's the only way to establish your power. Otherwise, no matter how great your talent is, having to spend all your time dealing with those people will end with you being squeezed out sooner or later. Furthermore, Protector Zhuo has even asked you to be arrogant and show your power. Other than to establish your power within the Divine Pill Hall, it's to put on a show for those opportunists and to see if you can pull in some of their votes. Although they won't easily join our faction, your influence will sway them over when voting. That's very important. Do you understand, Long San? Zhao Xiang explained it very clearly. If Long Chen still didn't understand, he would be an idiot. But he nervously said, "But I'm really not good at this. After all, I'm a well-behaved person." So what? All you have to do is know how to release yourself. Let all the resentment you've accumulated in your heart explode. For example, when others mock you, you can go up and directly slap them. You can do anything as long as you don't kill them. How are your battle skills? Asked Zhao Xiang. Battle skills? I'm not good at fighting either, said Long Chen crestfallenly. Is that so? That's fine. Alchemists aren't supposed to fight, so it's normal. I'll get some brawl fighting skills for you to learn. Remember, within Pill Valley, you cannot fight using your Pill Flame magical arts. That's a blasphemy to Pill Valley and is harshly punished, warned Zhao Xiang. Why is that? Because Pill Flames are meant to refine pills. Using Pill Flames to fight in Pill Valley is an insult. Don't you see that while I'm at the Life Star realm, I have to be polite in front of soul transformation disciples? That's because my alchemy path has reached its end, and I had no choice but to switch to become a fighting flame cultivator. The difference in status between a flame cultivator and an alchemist is like the difference between heaven and earth, sighed Zhao Xiang. Within Pill Valley, if your alchemy skills could no longer improve, Pill Valley would order you to become a powerful fighting flame cultivator. You would no longer cultivate alchemy arts, but the strongest flame battle skills. These flame cultivators were not very important to Pill Valley. They were viewed as nothing more than thugs hired to protect the house. Normally, dual martial pill cultivation was a dead end. True alchemists would not cultivate fighting techniques and instead focus completely on alchemy. If they split their time and energy between these two paths, they would be lost. They might find having powerful strength to be delightful, and because of their flame nature, they would become warlike and explosive, unable to calmly focus on refining. They would have severed their alchemy path. That was why Zhao Xiang's alchemy skills had sharply dropped after becoming a flame cultivator. He was unable to even refine the pills he himself needed. So that's what it was. Long Chen came to a sudden comprehension. No wonder these Pill Valley disciples looked so weak to him. So they only knew how to refine pills and had no idea how to fight. But then that made sense when he thought about it. There was no fighting or danger within Pill Valley. All they needed was powerful alchemy skills to be a supreme existence. That was a good thing. Wouldn't he end up becoming a lion amongst rabbits here? Anyone who started getting arrogant with him could be directly slapped. Alright, I'll try it. I won't let down Protector Zhuo's earnest hopes for me. Long Chen clenched his teeth as if making his resolve. Just remember not to use your pill flame to attack. Otherwise, you'll be severely punished. I have some fundamental fighting techniques here. They're very simple, so take a look and try them out. I'm sorry, but I went from an alchemist to a flame cultivator, so I don't know any bare-handed fighting moves. I can't teach you any of that, and you'll have to figure it out on your own. But with your comprehension skills, it shouldn't be a problem. In any case, just remember, you must be brazen, and you must be vicious. Pill Valley has countless miraculous medicines and pills, so even the harshest injuries can be healed in no time, said Zhao Xiang. Alright, I won't disappoint everyone. Whoever bullies me will end up with all their teeth on the ground. Long Chen clenched his fists with a fierce expression. This turn of events was truly amazing. It just so happened that he specialized in this. The next day, after arranging everything, Long Chen was brought toward the back of Pill Valley by a disciple. What surprised Long Chen was that Pill Valley was actually an island surrounded by water, and there was a long river splitting it in two. He had to cross a bridge, and eventually, a mountain gate appeared before him. Atop this mountain gate were words written in violet gold, Divine Pill Hall. As soon as they passed through the gates, a burst of fragrance blew into him, and the sounds of birds chirping rang out. He saw pavilions dotted across the land, streams of water, ancient trees, thick vines, as if this was a beautiful garden. As soon as he walked in, two soul transformation experts checked his badge before letting him continue. Long Chen had originally thought that the Divine Pill Hall would be a huge classroom with disciples studying diligently. He had imagined that it would be a boring life of constantly facing strict teachers and pill furnaces. But the scene before him was completely different from what he had imagined. This place was a wonderland. It was a large change from the hasty tempo of alchemy outside. The green grass was like a carpet, and the air was pure and clear, almost like it could cleanse a person's heart and soul. As he walked along the stone path, he suddenly heard tinkling laughter. That laughter was full of delight. Turning at the corner, he saw several maidens chatting happily in a few swings hanging from large trees. The maidens looked young, and each of them was a rare beauty. They were playing happily. Long Chen stood in the distance. Looking at those happy maidens, he suddenly thought of Meng Qi, Tang Wana, Chu Yao, Yu Shaoqian, and Yi Zhiqiu. If one day they could leave this world of slaughter and find a wonderland like this, he would accompany them like this every day. They would have a pile of kids, and he wouldn't trade such a future even for the chance to become a god. Without realizing it, Long Chen became absent-minded and simply stood there like a wooden block. The more he stared, the more fed up he became with this world. Oh, there's a new junior brother there. And he looks very young and handsome. Hey, junior brother, do you want to come and play? One of the maidens saw Long Chen. She wasn't the slightest bit bashful or embarrassed. She even invited him to join them. The other maidens stared at him curiously. Although 3 people would get to enter this place every 2 months, those people were mostly Jade Core experts. Someone like Long Chen with his foundation forging cultivation base was rare. More importantly, he was truly handsome. Long Chen smiled and courteously said, "Thank you, big sisters, but I still have some things to do. I won't disturb you." Long Chen didn't even know how long it had been since he had smiled like this. This smile of his made him look like an innocent boy from next door, and it was very warm. He could sense that these maidens were innocent and naive. They had no malice toward him. That was why his smile was very natural and sincere. "Hey, junior brother, wait a moment. I have a bit of advice," said one of them. "Advice? Please tell me." Long Chen was startled. The maidens stopped swinging and walked toward Long Chen. One of them said, "Seeing what a nice boy you are, I'll tell you this. Once you're in the Divine Pill Hall, don't join any faction. Just stay neutral. Otherwise, it'll be troublesome." The maidens all looked around, afraid others would hear them. "Thank you for the warning. I understand." Long Chen was grateful. These maidens were clearly also neutral, the ones that Zhao Xiang had called opportunists. But they had taken the danger of offending both factions to warn him, and that made him grateful. At least, there were still some good people in the cultivation world. Although they were few, it was because they were so few that they were to be treasured. But Long Chen was going to have to disappoint them. He had long since chosen his faction. Don't you know it's not good to randomly gossip? Just at this moment, 3 people walked over. The 3 were all men. The one who had spoken was their leader, and he was a large and sturdy man. Long Chen immediately laughed upon seeing them. Inside the Divine Pill Hall, the male disciples wore white robes and the female disciples wore red robes. But the ones in factions had special symbols as well. The conservative faction's disciples had a small shield mark on their collars to express their side. As for Long Chen's collar, there was supposed to be a small spear on it. But he had only just joined and hadn't gotten his robes yet. Seeing those 3, he knew that they had come to greet him and give him a display of power to get him to join their side. The maidens all shrank back, clearly a bit afraid of these 3. Don't you know it's not good to spout crap at others? Just how much shit did you eat to make your breath so smelly? Long Chen already had a backing and was fully confident. He no longer needed to endure this. "Brat, you're courting death." That person charged forward, only to get punched in the face. His nose broke and blood splashed. Long Chen wasn't used to this. He found slapping people in the face much more pleasurable. But he didn't dare to bring out his face slaps because he was worried others would recognize him. His divine face-slapping art was unrivaled and unique. It would be too easy for others to recognize it. Bastard! Attack together! That person held his nose in pain. With a furious roar, the 3 of them attacked him together. The maidens all let out startled cries, not expecting Long Chen to actually take the initiative to attack them. Things instantly blew up. Long Chen almost laughed upon seeing them attacking him. These people really didn't know how to fight. If they only had this little skill, they'd have long since been killed in the outside world. Ignoring the other 2, Long Chen grabbed their leader's hair and smashed his knee into the leader's head over and over again. With his power, he could have made the leader's head explode with a single kick. But to express that he wasn't experienced at fighting, he held back. The other 2 smashed their punches on his body, but it didn't even itch. Long Chen could ignore them. As for the one in his hands, despite how much Long Chen was holding back, he couldn't endure and fainted. Long Chen then tossed him to the ground. Grabbing one of the others, he tossed him over his shoulder, smashing his head into the ground. That person's neck broke, and he lay on the ground, unable to move. The remaining fellow's expression changed, and he turned to flee. But Long Chen grabbed his collar and roared, "After hitting me so many times, you think you can run?" Bang! Long Chen held his neck like he was holding a chicken. His opponent's feet couldn't even touch the ground. Long Chen punched him in the face. "Brat, do you know who I am?" Bang! "You refuse to answer? You're a tough guy, huh?" Long Chen's next punch landed on his eye, giving him a black eye. Bang! "So, you have guts? You dare to roll your eyes at me?" Seeing such a disdainful look, Long Chen helped him out and punched him again, giving him 2 black eyes. Bang! "Fuck, you dare to spit at me?" Long Chen became increasingly infuriated. "Junior brother. He's not rolling his eyes, he just fainted so his eyes rolled up. And he's not spitting at you, he's frothing at the mouth. If you keep beating him, he'll die." One of the maidens couldn't keep watching. "Ah, is that so?" Long Chen dropped him to the ground. His body twitched a few times before becoming still. "Sorry, it was my first time fighting, and I didn't have any experience," apologized Long Chen awkwardly, scratching his head. The current Long Chen had once more returned to the appearance of an innocent boy. It was truly difficult to associate him with the previous Long Chen. Of course, It was a bit easier considering the 3 people lying on the ground. Big sisters, don't worry. I will remember your favor today. If you need any help in the future, just come and find me, Long San. Long Chen smiled at the maidens. Without even looking at the 3 bodies on the ground, he left. Once he vanished, the maidens looked at each other. It was unexpected that the seemingly weak boy was so powerful. Then looking at the 3 bodies, they were no longer in the mood for the swings. Not even daring to touch the 3 of them, they also fled. Long Chen followed the small path forward. This winding path went around many mountains and brought him to quite a few beautiful sceneries. He saw people napping, he saw people playing chess, and he even saw maidens playing the zither. The people here all seemed very leisurely. He could see that these people were borrowing external force to make themselves relax. They were doing their best to remove as much tension from their bodies as possible. People also saw Long Chen walking along the path. They nodded toward him slightly in greeting, and Long Chen also nodded back. But there were also people who icily glanced at him and then continued with whatever they were doing. There were even some who had clear hostility for him. Long Chen estimated that these people were probably near the bottom of the rankings. His arrival was a threat to them. As he continued forward, he saw fewer and fewer people. He also saw people with spears on their collars, marking them as people on his side. But they didn't express any emotion upon seeing him. They looked at him like he was a stranger. The people with shields on their collars also only looked at him indifferently. They didn't make any moves, which he found curious. Could it be that those 3 didn't run into me by coincidence? They were set up? So Zhuo Tianxiang didn't publicly announce that I was part of the radical faction, but why? Why didn't they greet me? Are they trying to watch me for longer before deciding anything? Or was it that it depended on his display? If he was tough enough, they would let him join the radical faction, but if he wasn't, they would just toss him amongst the opportunists? Just as Long Chen was wondering about Zhuo Tianxiang's goal and walking with his head down, he saw a pair of eyes staring at him with surprise. "Oh, it's been a long time. Are you still well?" Long Chen smiled and greeted that slim and beautiful figure. That figure was precisely the Eastern Wasteland's alchemy genius, Duan Tianxiao. It had been several years since they had seen each other. Duan Tianxiao's appearance hadn't changed much. But there was a change in her eyes. Her life in Pill Valley hadn't been very easy. "Long San, you've finally come." Duan Tianxiao was sitting in a pavilion. She had a massive bone book in her hands and had been in the midst of studying it. The secular world's books were normally written on paper or beast hide. Within sects, most ancient records were recorded with spiritual jade plates. One reason was because they were easy to use, and another was because they lasted a long time. But they also had a drawback. That was that high-level runes could not be recorded within them. That was why sects would use the bones of high-ranking magical beasts to create bone books. These bone books could record runes clearly. Furthermore, they even contained the spiritual mark of the expert that carved the runes, making it easier for others to comprehend them. Duan Tianxiao was a beauty in her own right. She had delicate and pretty features, almond eyes and cherry lips. Adding on her petite figure, she was definitely lovable. Now looking at Long Chen, she had a complicated expression. Scooting over slightly, she said, "Please, sit. Then I won't stand on courtesy." Long Chen sat beside her. He couldn't help saying, "Thinking about past events truly makes a person emotional." "That's true. Back in the Eastern Wasteland, I remember that we were on opposite sides. At that time, you were quite fearful." Duan Tianxiao also thought of many things that had happened in the Eastern Wasteland. She smiled. Back then, it had been Long Chen, Chai Liehua, and Fong Chong against Huo Wufeng. The fighting between them had been very intense. After the competition, Duan Tianxiao had left the Eastern Wasteland with the Tower Ancestor. She didn't know what had happened later. "Aren't you the one who's doing well in Pill Valley? In the future, I'll need senior apprentice sister Tianxiao to look after me." Long Chen smiled. After all, Duan Tianxiao had come here 3 years before him. She had to know more about the Divine Pill Hall than he did. "I wouldn't dare to say I could look after you, nor do I dare to accept you calling me senior apprentice sister. Just protecting myself is difficult enough. In the monthly rankings, I'm always in the bottom 30. I don't know when I'll be squeezed out. Duan Tianxiao shook her head. Just being able to enter the Divine Pill Hall is amazing enough, comforted Long Chen. It seemed Duan Tianxiao hadn't been doing too well. Being at the bottom of the rankings of the Divine Pill Hall meant that she had to worry about being expelled at all times. Long San, you've only just joined the Divine Pill Hall, and you have 2 months to improve yourself. You have to take advantage of this time to enter the Divine Pill Pavilion to study. There are countless ancient tomes that will be very beneficial for you. Also, don't join the competition between factions, or it'll be very troublesome. You won't even be able to focus on cultivating. If a newcomer joins a faction, they won't be able to establish footing at all, warned Duan Tianxiao. Newcomers would be unable to establish footing? Long Chen instantly understood why Zhuo Tianxiang hadn't announced what side Long Chen was on from the start. It was to give Long Chen a chance to establish his own footing. In truth, Long Chen's guess was only half right. Zhuo Tianxiang wanted him to quickly establish his footing inside the Divine Pill Hall. He possessed his own unique status in the Divine Pill Hall. But as a newcomer, if he expressed which side he was on from the start, the other side would immediately try to suppress him. It would place a target on him. That was why Zhuo Tianxiang had decided to let Long Chen start off on his own. In any case, he had his status as Dan Bishi's final apprentice. There was no need for him to be timid. Now he was just quietly watching him. In any case, with Long Chen's talent, Zhuo Tianxiang wasn't worried about him getting kicked out of the Divine Pill Hall in 2 months. The radical faction was hoping for Long Chen to explosively grow under the pressure. After all, they didn't need a useless coward. All right, I understand. Long Chen nodded. The two factions will use both soft and hard tactics to force you to join them. As long as you refuse to join either side and stay neutral, they won't bully you too much, continued Duan Tianxiao. Why did this feel so childish? But then he thought about it. These disciples hadn't encountered anything other than alchemy. Their intelligence was truly like that of children. You still don't know how to check the rankings? Asked Duan Tianxiao. I really don't. Duan Tianxiao asked for Long Chen's badge and pressed down on a protruding part of its back. The back of the badge actually flipped over, and a small mirror-like crystal appeared from inside. There were designs carved into it that he couldn't understand. Rank 2306? How could your ranking be so high after only just joining the Divine Pill Hall? Duan Tianxiao was filled with disbelief. It had to be known that the disciples that had only just joined had low rankings. But as a special treatment for newcomers, as long as they weren't too weak, they wouldn't appear in the last 3 spots at first. This was a chance for the newcomers to benefit from joining the Divine Pill Hall. But usually their ranking would still be in the bottom 10. That was why Long Chen's rank shocked Duan Tianxiao. How are the rankings decided? Asked Long Chen. He didn't care about his ranking. In any case, he knew he wouldn't be at the bottom. The rankings are determined by the proctors through a comprehensive evaluation of the disciples. It's very accurate. Long San, it seems your prospects will definitely be limitless. Remember to look after me. Duan Tianxiao smiled. But of course, as people from the same region, we should naturally help each other. Long Chen patted his chest confidently. Seeing Li Kang and Duan Tianxiao in Pill Valley had truly made him feel like meeting old friends. However, if you're joining the neutral faction, don't go running off to the inner sect disciples. It will draw ire from others. That's because everything about the Divine Pill Hall is supposed to be secret. New inner disciples that join have to think of their own way to survive. If you expose what's happening here, both factions will be offended. Thereafter, no matter how good your talent is, you won't be able to survive in the Divine Pill Hall, said Duan Tianxiao. Long Chen now understood. No wonder Li Kang had said that Duan Tianxiao hadn't spoken to him after joining the Divine Pill Hall. So there was such an unwritten rule. He supposed that made sense. If everyone who joined the Divine Pill Hall entered the neutral faction, the conservative and the radical factions wouldn't be able to get new members. No wonder those maidens had offended those 3 fellows by warning him not to join a faction. So their words had been taboo. Now, he felt even more grateful to them. In this age, everyone only swept their own doors of snow. Who cared if other people's roofs were covered in frost? The number of kind people was truly low. Even though Long Chen and Duan Tianxiao could count as old acquaintances, her telling him so much was probably also dangerous, as it could offend others. He had to remember this favor. Long San, try to be low-key. Hurry to the Divine Pill Pavilion. That's where all of Pill Valley's alchemy tomes are gathered. It would be best if you went in and didn't come out until the next test. Cherish this time to study, said Duan Tianxiao. All right, I'll go and take a look. Long Chen nodded and rose. Suddenly, over 10 of the Divine Pill Hall's disciples surrounded the 2 of them. Long San, you really are brazen. You dare to beat our people? These people were wearing the same robes as the 3 people Long Chen had beaten. Seeing these people, Duan Tianxiao paled. She was clearly afraid of them. Little slut, you're even trying to form a relationship with Long San? It seems you don't want to continue staying in the Divine Pill Hall. Pow! One of the disciples was in the midst of cursing Duan Tianxiao when Long Chen slapped him across his face. Half his face caved in and he flew into the distance, fainting without even being able to let out a sound. Everyone jumped, including Long Chen. His slap was now a kind of instinct. If he hadn't managed to hastily pull back 90% of his power, that person would have died. The main thing was that Long Chen was unable to just stand there as someone in front of him pointed and cursed at a weak woman. He had almost caused a calamity for himself. All of you scram. If any of you targets her again, I'll kill you all. Long Chen was truly infuriated now. He might be fine if they targeted him, but targeting the people by his side was unacceptable. His furious roar drew quite a few others in the surroundings over. Brat, it seems you don't want to stay in the Divine Pill Hall anymore, roared the lead disciple. Fuck your mother. Long Chen suddenly attacked. That person let out a cold snort and dodged his hands, sending a kick at Long Chen's ribs. He was actually an expert at close-range combat. This attack was sharp and well-practiced. The disciples he had brought along all cheered, but their cheering was severed halfway like a knife had cut it. Long Chen had easily grabbed that person's leg. Fuck off. Long Chen threw him like a sandbag, doing a half spin before tossing him out. The disciples were startled and tried to catch him. But Long Chen had thrown him so strongly that these disciples were knocked away, vomiting blood. Amazing! Brother, you're so skilled. Can I know your name? Just at this moment, a group of people walked over. They had a small spear embroidered on their collars. I am Long San. Long Chen cupped his fists to these people. They were his people. Long San, the last apprentice of Senior Bishi? That person was delighted to hear this. Yes. And brother, you are? Ha, this junior is Zhang Yutao. I didn't expect to encounter you, Brother Long. Come, let's go find a place to hold a welcoming feast. Zhang Yutao smiled. Long Chen nodded. When he said goodbye to Duan Tianxiao, he saw her worry. He knew that by joining Zhang Yutao's faction, he would be signing up for a lifetime of trouble. Long Chen smiled to tell her not to worry. He had long since joined this faction, and he left with Zhang Yutao's group. As for the disciples that Long Chen had beaten, they watched him leave with rancor. At the top of a high mountain, where the clouds gently blew by, there was a glorious palace building. This was the true Divine Pill Hall. The Divine Pill Hall was a special place for disciples to practice alchemy. Behind the large palace building was an ancient pavilion. This was the Divine Pill Pavilion, being well known as one of the most important places in Pill Valley. It was packed with various alchemy secret arts and scriptures. Long Chen was currently holding a bone book. He was enthusiastically reading it, as it was secret art named the Explosive Blaze Art. This kind of secret art condensed flame energy into fighting skills. It possessed great power. Long Chen had been immediately attracted to it. The art described within it contained profound principles for the transformations of flames, which made it very difficult to understand. but its power was definitely terrifying. If he used Starfall in combination with it, Starfall's destructive power would greatly increase. How could Long Chen let this chance slip by? This was already his third day since joining the Divine Pill Hall. By the time Zhang Yutao had led Long Chen up the mountain, he had already explained the general situation. He also said that this was one of Zhuo Tianxiang's tests for him. In truth, from the moment Long Chen had walked through the gates, to when he fought with the opposing side, to now, Zhang Yutao and the others had always been watching. Zhuo Tianxiang had told Zhang Yutao that if Long Chen continued being such a coward, he could simply continue being bullied. He would only be pulled into their faction once he had finally had enough and attacked back. Furthermore, Zhang Yutao told Long Chen to maintain this kind of mood. Right now, the struggle between the two factions didn't leave room for face. Currently, the Divine Pill Hall had the Divine Spear Alliance and the Divine Shield Alliance. They represented the radical faction and the conservative faction respectively. If others heard this name, they might think the conservative faction was very modest and low-key, but the truth was that in order to make sure its power remained stable, the Divine Shield Alliance's disciples were all very arrogant. That was because only by being arrogant and showing their power could they intimidate more people and win more authority. In comparison, it was the Divine Spear Alliance that was weaker. Under the suppression of the Divine Shield Alliance, they found it very taxing to continue fighting. Their influence over the Divine Pill Hall's disciples as a whole was dropping. That was why the Divine Spear Alliance not only needed people with great alchemy arts but also someone who could draw enough influence. That was why if Long Chen continued being a coward, he wouldn't be very useful to the Divine Spear Alliance. They needed a disciple that dared to fight. Of course, the prerequisite was that this disciple's alchemy skills could keep up. That was why after telling Long Chen a few things, Zhang Yutao had sent Long Chen to the Divine Pill Pavilion to study. Long Chen wasn't interested in the alchemy arts here. Rather, it was the magical arts and battle skills here that he needed. To ordinary disciples, his actions were the complete opposite of what they should be doing. The Divine Pill Hall's disciples were alchemists who cared about alchemy. To train in fighting techniques was not proper. But Long Chen was too lazy to bother with the strange looks people gave him. He needed to find a way to increase his repertoire of flame magical arts, because his pill sovereign memories only had knowledge of alchemy, but nothing of flame fighting techniques. Long San, let's go. I'll bring you to switch out your earth flame. Everything's been arranged, and someone's already holding the line for us. Zhang Yutao came and interrupted Long Chen's studying. That was because Long Chen had said that he needed a better earth flame. One of the main reasons that he only managed to refine 3 rings in the trial previously was because of his pill flame. He was unable to use Hua Long's power here, and the earth flame he had been given wasn't strong enough. That was why he had asked Zhang Yutao for a stronger earth flame. Now that he was helping out the Divine Spear Alliance, if he didn't dredge up some benefits for himself, he wouldn't be Long Chen. Furthermore, the Divine Spear Alliance had its own backing, so this was an easy task for them. But obtaining a new earth flame required accumulating a certain number of merit points in Pill Valley. Normally, these merit points were obtained by refining high-tier medicinal pills. But Long Chen didn't need to bother with this. Someone else would cough up the money for him. With someone already in line for him, he could go and directly pick out an earth flame. Long San, Protector Zhuo has said that you can select an earth flame below rank 30. If you want a higher level earth flame, it will depend on your future display, whispered Zhang Yutao. There was envy in his eyes. To be able to pick out any earth flame ranked below 30 was an immense special treatment. Even Zhang Yutao's earth flame was only ranked 37th. That was the result of him working hard all these years. As for Long Chen, he had only just arrived and he could get a better one. Long Chen, you should pick the Berserk Blood Flame ranked 32nd. I heard your spiritual strength is powerful. If you can suppress the Berserk Blood Flame's berserk nature, its power will probably be even greater than the Heart-Incinerating Devil Flame ranked 31st, advised Zhang Yutao. That truly was the best option. If the Berserk Blood Flame wasn't so violent, it would probably be ranked 30th. Because it was too violent, using it to refine pills would require even more spiritual strength. Its power was definitely greater than the heart-incinerating devil flame ranked 31st, but it would take much more spiritual strength to use. Alright, then I'll listen to Brother Yutao. I trust Brother Yutao would definitely make the best choice for me. Long Chen also knew that the Berserk Blood Flame was the best option for him, so he directly gave Zhang Yutao a favor. Zhang Yutao was overjoyed. In truth, one of Zhang Yutao's goals was to suck up to Long Chen. After all, he was Dan Bishi's final apprentice. Although Dan Bishi had died, could the final disciple of a grand elder possibly be an ordinary person? That was impossible. Zhang Yutao's talent wasn't particularly outstanding. Of course, he had managed to get into the Divine Pill Hall, but the reason for this was his ability to read others and the situation. So he could already tell Long Chen was someone with limitless potential. Treating Long Chen well now would definitely have many advantages. Zhang Yutao handled things very neatly. Even a private room had been prepared for Long Chen. When Long Chen received the Berserk Blood Flame, he directly went into seclusion to refine it. Long Chen took out its flame seed. It was devoured in one bite by Huolong. Although it was ranked 32nd and the soul-devouring violet flame was only ranked 36th, it was just a flame seed, so suppressing it was easy. Huolong began to extract Long Chen's energy to undergo a transformation. The flame seed's power was too weak and unable to allow Huolong to fully transform. It needed Long Chen's energy. As for Long Chen's spiritual yuan, he couldn't use it for anything other than alchemy. So he allowed Huolong to absorb as much as it wanted. 3 days later, a blood-colored flame dragon appeared behind Long Chen, releasing a berserk aura. Huolong, you have to hold back a bit. Think of a way to control your power, or refining pills won't be fun. This new berserk aura of Huolong's was too strong, like a wild dragon who wanted to devour heaven and earth. Huolong now had an urge to destroy this entire room. This meant that it had been greatly affected by the berserk blood flame, and it wasn't suitable for refining pills. But Huolong let out a quiet roar, and its blood-colored flames vanished, replaced by violet flames. It was the soul-devouring violet flame. You can freely switch between them? Long Chen was shocked and delighted. Huolong told him that it could repeatedly switch between the various flames it had devoured according to its memories. That meant Long Chen could use whichever flame he wanted to. Good. Then I'll make sure you get to eat every single flame Pill Valley has to offer. Long Chen rubbed Huolong's head with delight. If he allowed Huolong to devour that many earth flames, Long Chen couldn't even imagine how strong it would become. 3 days later, Long Chen came out. Zhang Yutao and the others had long since been waiting. Long-san, you've only just joined the Divine Pill Hall and refined a new earth flame. Come, I'll bring you to a fun place so you can relax. Zhang Yutao smiled a smile that only men could smile. Long Chen immediately thought of something and was about to decline when Zhang Yutao dragged him away. Come, as a man, what are you so afraid of? If you don't relax, how will you be ready for the greater challenges? How is it? Isn't it relaxing? Zhang Yutao looked at Long Chen with a mischievous smile. Long Chen was sitting in a bucket. Steam filled the air, bringing with it bursts of medicinal fragrance. Medicinal energy was entering his body through his pores, completely relaxing him. Most importantly, there were 2 maidens behind him gently massaging his back and rubbing medicinal elixirs on him. The 2 maidens were massaging him with their spiritual yuan. This was Long Chen's first time receiving such treatment. He couldn't help but sigh. You city people really get to enjoy some amazing things. Amazing. Through this medicinal bath, Long Chen felt his tension completely vanish. In truth, his nerves were constantly taut now that he was in Pill Valley, as he had to be on guard to not expose his status. The pressure was immense. Long-san, I didn't expect your body to be so buff. No wonder you're so strong, and those fellows aren't your match. Zhang Yutao looked at Long Chen's arms enviously. Alchemists naturally had weak physical bodies. It was very rare for there to be someone with a body as well built as Long Chen's. Even the maidens massaging him were a bit red. Long Chen's body felt good under their hands. I had to fight for 3 years against sea demons to get this body. If I didn't eat them, they'd eat me, said Long Chen with his eyes closed. It's been tough on you. After the medicinal bath, Long Chen put his robes back on. He was completely refreshed. Come, it's getting late. Let's go eat, and later, there will be an even better program, laughed Zhang Yutao, leading Long Chen away. Reporting to Protector Zhua, a secret letter has come from the Xiantian Dao sect's side. Within a private room, an elder bowed and presented Zhuo Tianxiang an envelope. Zhuo Tianxiang opened it and gave it a read. After that, he dismissed the elder and returned to a deeper room. This room actually had a small transportation formation. He activated it and arrived in a luxurious hall. In it, 4 elders were sitting with their eyes closed. Disciple Tianxiang greets Grand Elders. Zhuo Tianxiang immediately bowed to the 4 elders. Tianxiang, there's no need to be so polite. What's been happening in the eastern Xian region? Asked one of the elders kindly. Reporting to Grand Elder, the eastern Xian region has returned to calm. Disciple has already arranged for everything, and the disturbance has calmed down. Furthermore, due to this matter, Disciple spent some resources as compensation to the sects who lost experts to the Xiantian Dao sect. In exchange, their unity is even greater than before, reported Zhuo Tianxiang. That Grand Elder nodded. Tianxiang, I trust the way you handle things. The matter of the Xiantian Dao sect isn't your fault. If we have to blame someone, we can only blame that useless Dan Sheng. He actually ruined such an easy thing, and you had to go wipe his bottom for him. Disciple also failed. I'm ashamed, said Zhuo Tianxiang modestly. In truth, the Xiantian Dao sect's matter truly wasn't Zhuo Tianxiang's fault. By the time he had taken over it, it was too late. Furthermore, there had been many details that his predecessor had known but he hadn't, causing him to be at a complete loss to do anything to Long Chen. Yes, to not be arrogant or prideful is correct. Are there any movements from the Xiantian Dao sect? Asked the Grand Elder. The Xiantian Dao sect seems to have run into a problem. They are currently looking all over to buy a heavenly Qilin soul-returning fruit. They've even sent some disguised disciples over to secretly purchase the 9 Revolution soul-replenishing pill. As reported by the eyes I have in the Xiantian Dao sect, the Xiantian Tower violently fluctuated several times during this short period. According to my guess, there are 2 possibilities. One is that Long Chen's underworld soul ghost curse has flared up and the Xiantian Tower is unable to completely suppress it. The other possibility is that the Xiantian Tower is attempting to forcibly remove the curse for Long Chen. Either case is very dangerous for Long Chen. And the fact that the Xiantian Dao sect is trying to secretly purchase the heavenly Qilin soul returning fruit and the 9 Revolution soul replenishing pill proves that he truly is in trouble. His soul has likely been damaged. Moreover, this underworld soul ghost curse was condensed by the life energy of many corrupt experts. Let alone a foundation forging disciple, even a life star expert would definitely die. Although the Xiantian Tower is powerful, Long Chen's cultivation base is still too low. The chances of it removing the curse from Long Chen are next to 0, said Zhuo Tianxiang. The underworld soul ghost curse was one of the corrupt path's most insidious curses. After considering that Gui Yen had sacrificed so many experts and even stripped life star experts of their vitality to power it, there was no need to doubt its power. This curse was not a poison. It had no cure. Once struck by it, the curse would sink into a person's blood, body, bones, and soul, closely entwining with every part of them. Each time the curse flared, it would grow stronger. If you suppressed it once, the second time it would be twice as strong. That was why Zhuo Tianxiang guessed that the Xiantian Tower was no longer able to fully suppress it. In truth, this was just a move by Li Tianxian. It was to make everyone think that Long Chen was still in the Xiantian Dao sect and that he was in grave danger. Those afflicted by the underworld soul ghost curse are essentially unable to remove it without the corrupt path's unique secret arts. That little fellow Long Chen probably won't be able to last much longer. How regretful. He likely has some large secrets. Well, it doesn't matter. Right now, our situation in Pill Valley isn't very secure. Elder Bishi's sudden death is queer. He still had plenty of longevity left, and there were no oddities with his body. It's just that the flame of his soul was extinguished, sighed a grand elder. Could it be that someone was secretly scheming against Elder Bishi? Said Zhuo Tianxiang after a moment's hesitation. Don't randomly make guesses, chided a grand elder. Yes, disciple knows his mistake. The previous grand elder said, those fellows are hidebound and refuse to advance, but they definitely wouldn't do such a thing. Having disciples fight for authority is already their limit. Furthermore, Elder Bishi's death came with no warning or any sign of a struggle. It couldn't be caused by an external force. Right now, the only possibility is that his Yuan spirit dissipated in his attempt to attack a higher realm. Although that was their only guess, was that really possible? By the time a person reached Elder Bishi's realm, they would always prepare everything and have guards before attacking higher realms. How could he have rashly attempted such a thing without telling anyone? These questions could only rot in Zhuo Tianxiang's stomach. He didn't dare to say anything for fear of being scolded again. Originally, 5 of the Grand Elders were on our side. Now we're left with 4, and our authority has also dropped. So, Tianxiang, you have to work hard on the side of the Divine Pill Hall, said the Grand Elder. Yes, disciple is dealing with it. I've already placed several chess pieces in the neutral power that are starting to show their use. Furthermore, that child Long San's display is not bad. If he's properly groomed, he'll become a powerful piece, and we also have geniuses like Yanxue and Dongzi. They are absolutely capable of competing against the Pill Fairy and the others. The current situation in the Divine Pill Hall is gradually shifting in our favor, said Zhuo Tianxiang. Alright, then that's good. Just focus on the Divine Pill Hall and don't rush things. After all, we're currently at a disadvantage, so above all else, we need stability. As for the matter of the heaven-devouring forest, we've given them a warning. You did well on your way through it. We can't let them get used to being arrogant. For now, let the Eastern Xian region stay as is. After all, the Xian Tiandao sect and Heaven-Splitting Battle sect are ancient sections. If we force things and put them in their place, it will cause panic. In the long run, it's not worth it. Furthermore, those old fellows definitely won't consent to using martial power. Just let them continue crawling for a while, said the Grand Elder. Yes. All right, you can go. Long Chun was brought to a restaurant by Zhang Yutao. It was by the riverside and had a wide view of the surrounding mountains. This restaurant had wine as its main attraction, and the price of everything here was based on merit points. Of course, it was Zhang Yutao who was treating Long Chen. 8 side dishes of delicacies paired with amazing wine made the scenery even more delightful. Alchemists had a lower capacity for food and wine. If this was the Xiantian Dao sect or the Heaven-Splitting Battle sect, they would definitely be drinking out of large bowls and chomping down on pieces of meat. But here, the wine cups weren't much bigger than a nostril. That left Long Chen a bit speechless. Were they really drinking wine, or were they drinking poison? After just drinking a couple of cups, Long Chen could hear some footsteps from the entrance. A group of people slowly walked up the restaurant. New guests had arrived. This was the highest level of the restaurant, and only the Divine Pill Hall's disciples were qualified to enter it. Long Chen looked over at the staircase. The first thing he saw was a graceful figure gently stepping onto the floor. A beautiful figure appeared in his eyes. She had long legs, a small waist, and an abundant chest. Her hair fell naturally behind her like a waterfall, complementing her long, charming neck. That, in addition to her shapely eyebrows, almond eyes, jade cheeks, and peach face, she was a beauty that could topple a nation. Most attractive of all were her eyes. They were like limpid autumn waters, and light flowed within them in an enchanting manner. There was also a special aura around her. Although she was a peerless beauty, she gave off a friendly feeling, and even other women wouldn't be able to get jealous of her looks. The thing that shocked Long Chen was that he didn't sense any heavenly Tao energy nor the flame fluctuations specific to an alchemist. She was just like an ordinary mortal, but it was also like she had merged with heaven and earth. Just by existing, she possessed an indescribable Tao charm. Seeing Long Chen and Zhang Yutao here, she was startled. She nodded slightly in greeting, and Long Chen also nodded back. As for Zhang Yutao, he just blankly stared at her, unable to say a word. Long Chen was about to nudge him and ask who she was when a group of people followed behind the woman. There were over 10 of them, men and women. One man in particular was standing behind her. He was very eye-attracting. He was tall and slender, with a perfectly placed nose and mouth, sword-like eyebrows, and bright eyes. He was extremely handsome. When the man saw Long Chen and Zhang Yutao here, he frowned. "Why are the two of you here? Do you not know that this place is already reserved?" Long Chen frowned. What was going on? Reserved? I didn't hear that. Zhang Yutao was also startled. Today is the Pill Fairy's 21st birthday. Everyone in the Divine Pill Hall knows this. Did you come here intentionally? Zhang Yutao clapped his forehead, recalling something. He immediately apologized. Sorry, it slipped my mind. I apologize to Pill Fairy. We'll leave immediately. Long San, let's go eat somewhere else. Long Chen nodded. Since someone had reserved this place for their birthday, then they might as well go. Since we managed to meet by fate, why don't the two of you come and sit with us? Asked the woman magnanimously. That's okay, we don't know each other, and we won't be able to eat and drink freely. Congratulations on your birthday. I wish you long-lasting beauty and fortune. Long Chen smiled and politely refused her invitation, as she had only invited them due to courtesy. He left with Zhang Yutao. The woman was a bit surprised. Within Pill Valley, any disciple who saw her would view her like a heavenly goddess. They would be too nervous to even speak to her. But Long Chen's gaze had been calm when he looked at her. That made her feel that this person called Long San was very peculiar. The woman's expression was caught by the man behind her. He remained expressionless, but a bit of iciness had appeared in the depths of his eyes as he stared at Long Chen's back. Long Chen had only gotten halfway down the restaurant when he suddenly encountered another group of people coming up. One of them suddenly pointed at Long Chen and cursed, "Bastard, you're the one who beat me. Fuck off." Long Chen hated it the most when people pointed at him, and he directly sent him flying with a kick. Bang. That person was sent flying, and the people with him were infuriated, swarming over at Long Chen. Fuck, I'll go all out. Zhang Yutao clenched his teeth and unleashed a flurry of fists. But as a result, he was immediately knocked out by a punch from the opposition. There were clearly experts in this group. Long Chen intentionally acted like he didn't know how to fight and was panicked. His fists just randomly flew around. Fuck my balls. It was unknown if Long Chen was doing it on purpose, but several people suddenly held their crotches and rolled down the stairs. The pain made them feel like they were dying. The others weren't much better off. Long Chen's crazy counterattack bruised them badly, and they were forced away miserably. However, now Long Chen was also disheveled, and his robes had been torn in several spots. It clearly showed the principle that even a tiger couldn't block a pack of wolves. Stop! Just at this moment, an angry roar rang out. The Pill Fairy's group had descended from the disturbance, and the roar came from that handsome man. Just at this moment, Long Chen tossed the final enemy to the ground. He pulled up Zhang Yutao and prepared to leave. "Hold it," shouted the man. "What, you want to invite me to eat? I've already said that since we're not familiar with each other, we shouldn't." Long Chen shook his head. Without even looking at that man, Long Chen dragged Zhang Yutao away. At this time, Zhang Yutao's face was black and blue, and one of his legs had been broken. He fished out a medicinal pill, and his injuries healed like he had never been injured. Zhang Yutao looked at Long Chen with shock. He hadn't expected Long Chen to be such a great fighter. Within the Divine Spear Alliance, Zhang Yutao was just a fighter. He was experienced in fighting, but the opposition also had experts on their side. He had carelessly been knocked out with a single punch. As for Long Chen, he had managed to beat them back. Although his appearance was a bit wretched now, his combat power was very shocking. "What happened here?" roared the man. Reporting to Senior Apprentice Brother Zijuan, this little brat only just became a disciple of the Divine Pill Hall, and he was arrogant, beating our people. One of the disciples got up and pointed at Long Chen, but before he could finish speaking, Long Chen punched him in the face. Did your parents never teach you that it's rude to point at people when speaking? Demanded Long Chen. Let this matter end here. Don't end up incurring hatred. The pill fairy helplessly shook her head. Today was her birthday. In truth, she didn't like this kind of occasion, but she had to come for appearance sake. Her mood had been bad from the start, and now she encountered such a thing. Just the fact that she didn't explode in anger already showed her restraint. Alright, then I'll give the pill fairy face this time. Brett, just wait. We're not done yet. The handsome man glared at Long Chen, the threat in his words clear. Long Chen couldn't be bothered to care. This kind of threat was something he had gotten tired of hearing 800 years ago. And wasn't he still living just fine? Wait for what? My Divine Spear Alliance isn't so easy to bully. Threatening others is only the display of the powerless. Today is the pill fairy's birthday, so we'll give her face. If it was your birthday instead, Jiang Zijuan, my Divine Spear Alliance's people would immediately attack. So you should shut your mouth. Threats will just prove how much of a coward you are, sneered Zhang Yutao, recovering his previous sharpness. Long Chen hadn't expected Zhang Yutao to be so fierce. If he hadn't misjudged, this Jiang Zijuan was very likely a rank 9 celestial. The disciples here all focused on the pill Dao, and due to the merger between their heavenly Dao energy and flame energy, it was more difficult to determine their celestial rank. But Long Chen felt intense dislike for heavenly Dao energy, so he could use that sense to tell that Jiang Zijuan was very likely a rank 9 celestial. But he was not a flame cultivator, so his combat power probably wasn't very high. Zhang Yutao brought Long Chen away after leaving behind his tough words. Suddenly, the pill fairy opened her cherry lips. Junior apprentice brother, may I ask your name? We're all part of Pill Valley, and knowing each other's names will make it easier for us to greet each other in passing. The pill fairy had taken the initiative to ask for Long Chen's name, startling the disciples behind her. The handsome man's expression also sank slightly. Junior disciple is Long San. I hope senior apprentice sister will look after me in the future. Long Chen cupped his hands. He didn't feel any dislike for this gentle and graceful pill fairy. Other than his own beauties, his experience with other beautiful women was that they were all incredibly arrogant and narcissistic, as if this world's men should all lie beneath their skirts. But the pill fairy gave him a very comfortable feeling. She didn't stand on airs and seemed friendly. Seeing Long Chen leaving, the pill fairy involuntarily felt an emotion she hadn't felt before. Her intuition told her that Long San was not an ordinary person. It was as if his weak exterior hid a sleeping beast. This kind of feeling was very strange. She was lost in thought. The other people all stared in shock as the pill fairy watched Long Chen leave. These disciples felt forlorn and angry. As for Jiang Zijuan, veins had started popping out on his forehead. Within the Divine Pill Hall, each disciple had a private building of their own. After Long Chen had returned to his own room, he stared blankly at the fundamental fighting skills that Zhao Xiang had left for him. On their way back, Zhang Yutao had told Long Chen that the pill fairy's name was Yu Qingxian. She was the descendant of the current Valley Master, as well as Pill Valley's top beauty. Not only was she a beauty, but she was also a kind beauty with a graceful bearing. Although she stood in the ranks of the Divine Shield Alliance, even the opposing Divine Spear Alliance was extremely respectful to her. The pill fairy Yu Qingxian simply stood in the Divine Shield Alliance's ranks, but she never targeted the Divine Spear Alliance. As long as someone ran into a problem with their alchemy, if she had time, she would always give them some pointers regardless of their faction. She was the most respected person in the Divine Pill Hall. That was why, despite the fierce battle between the Divine Spear Alliance and Divine Shield Alliance, Yu Qingxuan's position in the hearts of all the disciples never changed. Long Chen wasn't interested in this clash between spear and shield. All he was focused on was finding a way to obtain the second volume of the Nirvana scripture. But even after all this time, he hadn't gotten a lead. If this continued, he would end up wasting too much time. Right now, he had been tossed in the pool known as Pill Valley. He needed to find a way to stand out. Otherwise, acting according to normal standards would take far too long. But if he suddenly soared out of nowhere, it would draw suspicion. He had to find a balance between the two. After a few days of investigation, he had noticed that the struggle within Pill Valley wasn't intense enough. If he wanted to stand out, he would need to intensify the conflict between the two factions. I'll have to take a risk. Long Chun suddenly made his decision. He needed to quicken his pace, or at this rate, he probably wouldn't be able to obtain the Nirvana scripture even if he was given several years. The next day, Long Chun began immersing himself in the Divine Pill Pavilion. While it seemed like he was studying some ancient alchemy tomes, he was actually secretly learning flame magical arts. The Divine Pill Hall's flame magical arts were rarely perused. Only flame cultivators would go look at them. Flame spirit merger? Long Chen's heart suddenly pounded. He had found an amazing magical art that allowed him to merge with a flame spirit beast. After using this art, he could use his body to control the spirit beast's flame, or use the spirit beast's body to unleash magical arts. Damn, what a terrifying magical art. I have to learn it. He was delighted and quickly recorded its contents. Do you think such things are for you to look through? Just as this moment, a disciple grabbed the bone book out of Long Chen's hands. Long Chen was infuriated. In the past few days, some people had been continuously making things hard on him. But it was forbidden to use martial force in the Divine Pill Pavilion, so he had endured until now. However, he couldn't endure any longer. Fuck your mother. Long Chen directly smashed his fist into that person's jaw. Grabbing his hair, Long Chen smashed the guy's head into his knee. Fuck your mother. Long Chen accented each word with a blow. The sound immediately drew the surrounding people. That person had already fainted. Then Long Chen tossed him to the ground and shattered each of his limbs. That clear sound raised people's hair. Ah! A miserable shriek resounded throughout the Divine Pill Pavilion. He had woken from the pain. That person's miserable shriek had only just rung out when Long Chen stamped a foot on his mouth. This blow was exceptionally vicious, and that person's head almost exploded. Stop! Just at this moment, people from the Divine Shield Alliance rushed over. Long Chen roared, "So, you don't want to let me cultivate in peace? Then I'll kill you all." Long Chen seemed like a furious lion. He caught one of the disciples' punches and then pulled, forcibly ripping his arm off. Die! Long Chen punched that disciple in the chest, caving it in. Thereafter, he grabbed his leg and smashed him at the others. "If you don't want to let me cultivate, then you can all die." Long Chen fiercely swung that person around. Blood flew and the sound of bones breaking continuously rang out. Stop! At this moment, a Life Star expert rushed over. But Long Chen seemed to be insane and ignored him. He repeatedly punched a disciple who was lying on the ground. That disciple coughed up blood repeatedly, filled with terror. Suddenly, a large hand slammed into the back of Long Chen's head. He immediately fainted. Within a private room, Zhuo Tianxiang looked at the scene recorded in a photographic jade. This scene was of Long Chen fighting fiercely in the Divine Pill Pavilion. Good, that's about enough. The seed of hatred has been planted, and there's basically no chance of Long San joining the other side. That's the only way we can put him in an important position. Zhuo Tianxiang nodded his head. Yanxue, Qin, the two of you go bring Long San out. Now's the best time to win his heart. Other than Zhuo Tianxiang, there were two other people in this private room. One was a gorgeous young woman with a beauty mark between her long eyebrows. She had phoenix eyes, and her chin was slightly sharp. The feeling she gave off was the opposite of the Pill Fairy's friendly air. Beside her was a tall, lanky man. They both had fierce flame fluctuations around them. Although they weren't releasing those intentionally, they still gave off immense pressure. The woman's name was Dan Yanxue, while the man's name was Qin. Both of them were rank 9 celestials with outstanding alchemy arts. They were the leaders of the Divine Spear Alliance. Dan Yanxue asked, "This Long San is just a brutish man. Is it worth it for us to personally win him over?" Her tone was arrogant, and she clearly looked down on Long San. She wasn't willing to lower her position to pull him in. His spiritual strength has gone through a mutation. While you are at the Jade Core realm, his spiritual strength is already a match for yours at the Foundation Forging realm. We've already done a series of observations of him and didn't find any problems. We can pull him into our faction, said Zhuo Tianxiang. Fine. Dan Yanxue agreed, but her agreement was a bit forced. As for Kendongza, he didn't say a word. Pill Valley's prison was located 3,000 meters underground. Only disciples that had violated the rules would be imprisoned here to reflect upon themselves. Dan Yanxue and Kendongza were walking side by side. Kendongza lightly said, with the Divine Shield Alliance's methods, this Long San is definitely locked in the delinquent room. He's going to be half dead by the time we get there. It's going to be a headache for us to bring him out like that. If this Long San isn't as useful as Protector Zhuo says he is, I'm definitely going to kill him. Iciness flashed in Dan Yanxue's eyes. This is it. They walked to the end of the passageway. An iron door was in front of them. This was the delinquent room, a place for disciples that were too warlike. Disciples that had broken the rules were tossed into prison and divided based on what rules they broke. As for the fellows who liked to be berserk and fight, they would all be lumped together so that they could beat each other. But when they arrived at the door, they didn't hear any screams or cursing. Instead, it was strangely quiet. What's going on? Could they have beaten each other to death? Kendongza was startled. He slowly took out a key and unlocked it, then he heard a sound come from inside. Master Long, is this hard enough? Asked a fawning voice. Pow! A slapping sound rang out and a voice raged. Did you not eat? Use some force. Yes. This little one will work harder. That voice was full of terror. The iron door was slowly pushed open by Kendongza, and a dense smell of blood flooded out. When they saw the situation in the delinquent room, Kendongza and Dan Yanxue could only stare. There were over 10 people that had been beaten into the walls, their shoulders and thighs all stabbed through. And the things stabbing them were the bones of their arms and lower legs. Those people were all terrified, their mouths stuffed with shoes. They didn't dare to make the slightest noise. Seeing Dan Yanxue and Kendongza walk in, those delinquents were so grateful that tears streamed down their faces. It was like they had seen their saviors. For people were kneeling on the ground, a wooden bed on their shoulders. One person was lying on it, with a group of men carefully serving him. 2 of them were massaging his feet, 2 of them were beating his legs with their fists, 1 was combing his hair, and the last one was even treating his nails. A hand suddenly slapped across one of their faces. That was because that person had accidentally made a hair snap while combing it. To the side, there were 2 people holding fans nervously waving them. They were being even more careful than palace eunuchs treating the emperor. Long San. Kendongza and Dan Yanxue exchanged a glance, both seeing each other's shock. Kendongza was the one who opened his mouth. Yes. Master Long San was in the midst of enjoying himself when he heard someone call his name. He opened an eye slightly and saw that new people had come. You are. Long Chen sat up, and the people attending him immediately stood to the side, standing like wooden stakes, afraid of even moving. I am Kendongza, and this is our Divine Spear Alliance's leader, Dan Yanxue. We came to bring you out. Ha, I can leave? Hey, idiot, I'm leaving. Aren't you going to hurry up and put on my shoes? Long Chen suddenly slapped a person across the face. Only then did these people react. They hastily put Long Chen's shoes and robes on him, all of them excited. It was like the one being released from prison wasn't Long Chen, but them. Kendongza looked at the situation and seemed to understand something. But he didn't say anything. He felt like this Long San definitely wasn't ordinary. Pow! Long Chen slapped another person across the face and raged, I'm leaving. It's a good thing, so why are you crying? We don't want to part with Master Long. That person looked like he was finally sending off a Yama King, and was so emotional that tears streamed down his face. Right now, he could only make such an excuse. Not bad, Master Long didn't teach you for nothing. I should stay here for a couple more days before leaving. Long Chen nodded, acting emotionally as well. No, Master Long, this place is dirty and smelly, completely unsuitable for your grand existence. We will respectfully send you off." All the men knelt on the ground. When Long Chen had been sent to the delinquent room, he had understood a principle. If he wanted to show off, then he had to cause as much trouble as possible. As long as he could show off his value, then the more trouble he caused, the more highly he would be viewed. As a result, these delinquents that had intentionally been arranged to come here to beat him all ended up miserable. Compared to Long Chen, they were nothing more than sheep. After exiting the prison and smelling the fresh air, Long Chen immediately took a deep breath. "Many thanks. Long San will remember this favor. If either of you need anything, just ask and I will do my best," said Long Chen. Although he knew the two of them had come just to make him indebted to them, this was still something that he needed to follow through with. At least acting grateful was a must. "There's no need to be this formal. We're all on the same side. I still have things to do, so I'm leaving. Kendongza will tell you what you should do." Dan Yanxue was as icy as ever, and she left. Kendongza smiled helplessly. "The Alliance Master, well, she has a powerful status, so don't mind her. We naturally have to help each other out, so don't worry about this. Just continue showing your power. For example, what you did in the Divine Pill Pavilion. Protector Zhuo always disliked your cowardly nature, so he has been secretly observing you. Your display today greatly satisfied him though. The two of us came to get you to express that you've already joined the core of the Divine Spear Alliance, and also to tell you that you don't need to have any misgivings. Within Pill Valley, there's nothing that we can't do. Even if you provoke a calamity, we can handle it. So, don't worry. Go ahead and provoke a calamity to prove your existence. Within the Divine Spear Alliance, there are two kinds of people that are the most useful, those with great alchemy arts, and those that can cause trouble. The Divine Spear Alliance has plenty of people with great alchemy arts, but we're lacking geniuses who can cause trouble. That's all I have to say. You should understand what I mean. I'm also busy, so take care." Kendongza also left, leaving behind only Long Chen. How interesting. Long Chen had finally managed to probe Zhuo Tianxiang's goal. That wily old fox had still felt that he wasn't reliable enough and had been continuously testing him. Wasn't it just causing trouble? It just so happened that this was his specialty. But that bragging, wasn't that a bit too much? They could do anything within Pill Valley and even handle a calamity. What if the calamity was that he took away all of the Divine Pill Pavilion's earth flames? Through the battle in the Divine Pill Pavilion, Long Chen had truly shaken everyone. Now there were very few people who dared to directly provoke him. In fact, as long as anyone dared to mock him at all, he would directly punch them. Those disciples were now afraid of him. The disciples who thought that their fighting skills were pretty good were nothing in front of Long Chen. Long Chen also didn't use any techniques. It was like he didn't know how to fight at all and was just randomly swinging his arms. But because his fighting had no pattern, no one could block him. Sometimes when the power difference was extremely great, Long Chen would lose. Perhaps that was because the other side had too many people. But Long Chen never cared how many people were on the opposing side. Anyone who provoked him would be beaten by him. If others beat him, he would beat them back as well. There were several times where he had almost killed someone. Once, he caused the head of a disciple to explode. Fortunately, alchemists had powerful spiritual strength, so his soul wasn't destroyed. Using a medicinal pill, he gave birth to a new physical body. This was Pill Valley, so that was possible. But in any other sect, that person would have definitely died. His punishment for doing that had been to spend a few days as emperor within the delinquent prison before coming back out. During this time, he profoundly experienced just how important it was to have a powerful backer. In the blink of an eye, 2 months passed. The Divine Pill Hall's trial once more occurred, and this time, the trial was to refine a 9th-tier medicinal pill. With the Berserk Blood Flame's assistance, Long Chen refined a 9-ring pill, rising to rank 947th amongst the 3,000 disciples of the Divine Pill Hall. To ascend into the top 1,000 just 2 months after joining caused his name to shake the Divine Pill Hall. This speed was outstanding. The alchemy talent Long Chen had displayed had even shocked Zhuo Tianxiang. He had originally thought Long Chen would need half a year to show any obvious improvement, but he had given him a pleasant surprise. However, at this time, an unexpected matter pushed Long Chen to the heart of their struggle. Long San, you killed my brother. I challenge you to a life-and-death battle. Long Chen had just walked out of the Divine Pill Pavilion when a random disciple blocked his path with a sinister expression. Behind him were two people carrying a body. This person had insulted Duan Tianxiao yesterday while Long Chen had been chatting with her. He had said Duan Tianxiao was just a slut, causing her to cry. Thus, Long Chen had fiercely beaten that person until he no longer resembled a human. His injuries were extremely frightful, but he hadn't killed him. He had just made him suffer some pain. But now, that person's soul had dissipated, and he was clearly dead. That startled Long Chen. But he quickly thought of something. He wasn't dead yesterday. Him dying today has nothing to do with me, sneered Long Chen. Long Chen deduced that this disciple had been killed so that the other side could target him. That person's death gave the person in front of him an excuse to challenge him. The challenger was a rank 7 celestial at the Jade Core realm. The flame fluctuations around him were extremely intense. It seemed that he was someone who had reached the end of his alchemy path and was preparing to switch to become a flame cultivator. Flame cultivators had terrifying power. Right now, Long Chen had only shown that he had a powerful physical body. But if he encountered a flame cultivator in a life-and-death battle, the little bit of power he had displayed was nothing. He would be killed in one blow. Clearly, Long Chen's existence was already a threat to the other side. They had sacrificed a disciple to get rid of him. His death is because of the serious injuries you gave him. When we got back, his injuries worsened and suddenly erupted out of control. Do you think you can brush off your guilt with just a few words? What a joke! Long San Chi Li was my life-and-death brother, closer to me than a real brother. This enmity must be avenged by me, Luo Xiao. I've already applied for a life-and-death match. Just wait to pay with your life. That Luo Xiao sneered and looked at Long Chen like he was already dead. He then left with his people. How ridiculous! They were actually capable of using such a childish method? If they could get away with it, it would really be ridiculous. First of all, ignoring the fact that this disciple wasn't killed by Long Chen, even if he was, he hadn't died at that time, and it was impossible to use this matter to punish Long Chen. Pill Valley had countless medicinal pills. As long as a person didn't immediately die, it would be difficult for them to die even if they wanted to. Furthermore, he had beaten him a whole day ago. Could it be that if he died 10 years later, it would still be Long Chen's fault? This whole scheme was complete nonsense. No matter what they tried, Zhuo Tianxiang's side had plenty of ways to show that there were holes in this plot. They would first demand an investigation and use all kinds of delaying tactics. And in the end, without enough proof, this matter would come to an end. Long Chen ignored him and returned to his room. On his way back, he hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he decided not to enter Duan Tianxiao's courtyard. He saw Duan Tianxiao quietly standing under a tree, lost in thought. He didn't know what she was thinking, but he didn't disturb her. He returned to his residence to study the magical arts he had learned in the past few days. The other side has made their way. What do you think? Zhuo Tianxiang was in a private room speaking to Dan Yanxue and Kendongza. It's just a childish trick of Jiang Zijuan's. He's just a pretty face. Anyway, this matter won't cause any trouble for us. That Qi Li died only after returning, so trying to force the responsibility onto Long Chen is already very ridiculous. There's no need to bother with it. We can just stall until this matter is forgotten. Long Chen's potential is terrifying, and I feel like if we properly raise him, he'll become an excellent chess piece. We have to protect him, said Kendongza. Zhuo Tianxiang nodded with praise. Kendongza's way of handling things was very meticulous, and his observation skills were very sharp. I don't feel the same. I feel like this is a good chance to launch a vicious counterattack. We shouldn't protect Long San, but send him to go all out instead. Dan Yanxue shook her head. Oh, what do you mean? Asked Zhuo Tianxiang. We have myself and Dongza for alchemy geniuses as well as our old team. That's already enough. We don't need to raise an alchemy genius, but a chess piece that can kill people and instantly break the balance. Dan Yanxue raised her eyebrows slightly, a cold light in her eyes. She continued that Long San might possess strangely powerful spiritual strength, but his alchemy arts would need at least over a year to grow to the point that he can affect the balance that way. However, I feel like that's too slow. It's better to have a chess piece that has immediate use. You mean to? Qin Dongzi was startled. Yes. Have you not noticed that Long San is just a country bumpkin? After receiving our grooming, his confidence has inflated to the point of arrogance. He'll beat whoever he wants. A bumpkin like him possesses an innate feeling of inferiority. Without anyone restraining him, he's already become brazen. Do you not see that when he looks at us, he might look respectful on the surface, but there's some barely concealed disdain in his eyes? It's like he feels that he'll be trampling over us at any time. He's already become bedeviled, said Dan Yanxue coldly. This really is the case. Long San has become insolent recently. I've already warned him subtly about it, but it seems that he can't understand, said Qin Dongzi. Conflict after conflict, they had felt that Long San's arrogance had grown stronger. It seemed that he liked to show off, especially in front of everyone. It was very irritating. His current display was typical of a little person who achieved meteoric success. Zhuo Tianxiang could understand such a thing. After all, after being timid and suppressed for so long, Long San's resentment was finally being released. This display was very natural. They didn't know that Long Chen had intentionally displayed this just to prepare a foundation for his future actions. Since Long San has already been bedeviled, we should just help him out and let him become a flame cultivator. When the time comes to enter the Heavenly Dragon Flame region, he can go crazy and slaughter all the experts of the Divine Shield Alliance. What do you think, hee? Dan Yanxue laughed, her icily cold face twisted in a sinister expression that gave others goosebumps. This is a good idea. It's the fastest way to use him. With Long San's spiritual strength and flame control, he'd definitely be a terrifying flame cultivator. Killing those alchemists would be easy. Once it's over, we'll push all the responsibility on Long San, turning him into the culprit so that no one can blame us. Qin Dongzi's eyes brightened. Even Zhuo Tianxiang was moved by this. This move was very vicious, but it was the fastest way to use Long San. This chess piece could make a tremendous impact this way. However, to have an alchemist with limitless potential become a flame cultivator will probably be a bit difficult. Qin Dongzi shook his head. Long San wasn't an idiot. He wouldn't agree. It's not up to him. Someone has challenged him to a life and death battle. As long as we don't say anything, or if we agree to it, Long San must face the battle. He'll either have to die, or hurry and cultivate flame magical arts in a limited time to face Luo Zhao's challenge. We just have to tell him that even dual martial pill cultivation can reach the peak of the alchemy Dao. Isn't our pill fairy Yu Qingxian the best example? Said Dan Yanxue. When she mentioned the pill fairy, fierce jealousy appeared in her eyes. Alright, then let's try it. That Long San is still a youngster and he might fall for it. Qin Dongzi nodded. He knew that such a matter would be up to him, the Vice Alliance Master. Long San bad news? Long Chen was in the midst of studying his new magical arts when the door to his room was pushed open. Zhang Yutao ran in panically. What is it? Asked Long Chen hurriedly. Quick come. Duan Tianxiao, she committed suicide. What? Long Chen's expression changed. Duan Tianxiao was in her courtyard, sitting beneath a tree. Her eyes were looking toward the east. They had lost all their luster. There were quite a few disciples around Duan Tianxiao's courtyard. It was unknown what they were whispering. Out of the way! Long Chen directly barged through them, arriving in front of Duan Tianxiao. Placing a finger on her forehead, his spiritual strength poured inside. However, it was too late. Although her body was still warm, her soul had long since dissipated. If he had come just a quarter hour earlier, when Duan Tianxiao's soul had just started to dissipate, perhaps he would have been able to use his powerful spiritual strength to form a spiritual formation and recall her soul. But now, no one could save her. A beautiful girl lost her life beneath an ancient tree. Why? Long Chen looked at Duan Tianxiao. There were no tears on her face. Her lifeless eyes were still looking into the distance like they were remembering something with longing. Long Chen felt a sad pain. A beautiful woman was like a flower. Its wilting was always regretful. That was especially true when it was a friend who died. Long Chen suddenly saw Duan Tianxiao holding something in her hand. It was a piece of paper. He slowly unfurled it and read what was written on it. There was simply one line written by a woman's hand. Now will you be happy? Seeing this line of words, Long Chen's expression changed. He sensed that this matter was not ordinary. Yu Tao, what's going on? Killing intent began to rise in Long Chen's eyes. What do you think? Others got bored of playing with this slut and tossed her away. As for you, Long San, you were just second-hand goods, hee. Sneered a disciple. Die! Long Chen suddenly roared furiously and punched that disciple's head. There was no suspense. His head exploded like a watermelon. Long Chen's punch was too terrifying and too sudden. The disciples beside him were all splattered with blood. No! That disciple's soul appeared in the air, but a flame spear suddenly shot out of Long Chen's hand, incinerating his soul. That disciple was instantly killed. The other disciples were all shocked. They had never expected Long Chen would dare to kill people. They all became pale, too terrified to move. Long Sen, you've caused a calamity now. Zhang Yutao also jumped in fright. Now even he was worried. I don't care about that right now. Tell me, why would Duan Tianxiao commit suicide? Who is she asking if they will be happy now? Demanded Long Chen. Zhang Yutao explained this matter from the start. Panic wouldn't help now. At this time, people were already rushing away to report this matter to the elders. Under Long Chen's interrogation, Zhang Yutao had no choice but to explain Duan Tianxiao's history. Originally, her talent was not bad, and she easily became an inner disciple. But wanting to join the Divine Pill Hall was extremely difficult. She tried several times without succeeding. Later on, one of the Divine Pill Hall's disciples gave her some pointers, allowing her alchemy skill to advance by a great deal, making her eligible to finally enter the Divine Pill Hall. Duan Tianxiao was extremely grateful to that disciple, and under his pursuit, the two of them became alchemy Dao companions. It was only later that Duan Tianxiao learned that this disciple had only helped her to pull her into the Divine Shield Alliance. Furthermore, this person also had other Dao companions. Duan Tianxiao had immediately felt used. She had had a huge fight with that person, and she had formed an urge to kill herself at that time. It was the Pill Fairy that had come to support Duan Tianxiao, advising her to leave the Divine Shield Alliance and join the neutral faction. Furthermore, she had even given out a warning that no one was to mention this matter again. At that time, this matter had caused quite a ruckus before things had gradually calmed down. Duan Tianxiao had managed to escape the shadow of her past and once more began cultivating her alchemy. But the emotions that hadn't worked out from back then still caused quite an influence over her, and in the end, she was unable to improve her ranking. She was stuck at the bottom, always in danger. Just yesterday, when someone had cursed Duan Tianxiao for being a slut, Long Chen had thought that someone was intentionally trying to find trouble with him. He hadn't known there had been such a story behind it. Now, it seemed that this person's curse had provoked Duan Tianxiao's inner wound. Adding on how her alchemy had stagnated for so many years, she had felt like there was no more meaning in living, and decided to end her young life. Why did you have to do this? People always grow by facing the bumps on their way. They mature amid lies and schemes. Did you really think this life no longer had meaning to you? If you really hated this world, why is it that you would face toward the east before death? Don't worry, I will bring your ashes out of this emotionless world and back to your home. Long Chen sighed and gently brushed Duan Tianxiao's face. He closed her eyes. I'm sorry. Just at this moment, the Pill Fairy walked over in an imperial dress. Seeing Duan Tianxiao's corpse, sadness appeared in her eyes. You don't have anything to apologize for. Wherever there are people, there will be competition, a survival of the fittest. You've already done what you could do. I'd just like to ask you to leave Duan Tianxiao's ashes to me after she's cremated. I hope to return her ashes back to her home. Perhaps that was her only desire before her death, said Long Chen. Long San, you randomly killed someone? Come with me. Just at this moment, a group of elders seized Long Chen. Long Chen didn't resist and let them bring him away. The pill fairy looked at his stubborn figure as it gradually faded. An indescribable pain appeared in her heart. Pill fairy, this matter, Jiang Zijuan also rushed over. Don't try to explain anything. I don't care if you know about this or not. Your struggles in the future have nothing to do with me. I'm bringing her away. The pill fairy gently picked up Duan Tianxiao's body. Without even looking at Jiang Zijuan, she left. Jiang Zijuan awkwardly made way for the pill fairy. The pill fairy had always been a gentle person. For her to say such a thing meant she was truly infuriated. Long San, you've killed 2 people now. This is truly troublesome. Qin Dongzi was disappointedly speaking to Long Chen in prison. He repeatedly brought up his shortcomings, how he was too impetuous, how he didn't use his head, and how he was definitely going to be executed now. Although that disciple truly said something he shouldn't have said after Duan Tianxiao's death, killing him is still unforgivable. We've already reduced your punishment as much as possible. Right now, the only thing you can do is accept Luo Zhao's challenge. Luo Zhao is a rank 7 celestial and a flame cultivator. Since you haven't cultivated flame magical arts, you'll definitely die. That's why you have to work hard during this time to cultivate flame fighting skills to face Luo Zhao. We've already done our best and won 10 days for you to train. Long San, I want to hear what you think, said Qin Dongzi. I'm not thinking about anything. So what if I have to switch to become a flame cultivator? Others are unable to do dual martial pill cultivation, but I've always wanted to try it. I just want to know if after I kill Luo Zhao, will I be able to challenge the person that caused Duan Tianxiao to commit suicide as revenge for her? Asked Long Chen. Qin Dongzi laughed inside. Originally, he had been thinking of how to convince Long Chen to switch to become a flame cultivator. He hadn't expected him to be so brazen as to instantly agree. Furthermore, he was even thinking about future challenges. This simply proved that he had been completely bedeviled. As long as you can kill Luo Zhao, everything else is no problem. As for the matter of avenging Duan Tianxiao, we'll definitely set it up for you. Whether or not you'll be able to kill that person will be up to your own abilities though, said Qin Dongzi. Good. Then I want to start training in flame magical arts right now. I'm already impatient, said Long Chen confidently. All right, then I'll find a powerful flame cultivator to secretly train you during this time. Good luck. I look favorably upon you. Qin Dongzi patted Long Chen on the shoulder encouragingly. But when he turned to leave, a cold smile appeared on his face. However, when Qin Dongzi left, he didn't see a cold smile also appear on Long Chen's face. Time passed by, and 5 days were gone in an instant. Within Zhuo Tianxiang's private room, other than Zhuo Tianxiang, Dan Yanxue, and Qin Dongzi, a red-haired elder was also present. This elder had extremely intense flame energy fluctuations coming from his body, and they caused space to twist around him. He was a terrifying life-star flame cultivator with immense power. Elder Zhu, how is Long San's cultivation? Asked Zhuo Tianxiang. Reporting to Protector Zhuo, everything is going very smoothly. This Long San is definitely a genius with terrifying comprehension ability. Furthermore, his willpower is very strong. He chose to use the peak level of the raging flame body tempering process. Even as his body is incinerated, his expression doesn't change. He's a ruthless person. In order to increase the power of his physical body, he undergoes the body tempering process for 16 hours a day, and with the best possible medicinal pills offered to him, the rate at which his body is strengthening is monstrous. If I didn't personally witness it, I wouldn't believe it. He's truly suited to walk the path of a flame cultivator, said the red-haired elder Zhu emotionally. Long Chen's body was strengthening so quickly that elder Zhu found it hard to believe. Long Chen was using this body tempering process to slowly reveal the real power of his physical body. That way, the increase of his battle strength wouldn't be too sudden and expose him. But then when he fights Luo Xiao, he won't lose. As long as he can force it into a draw, we can get past this. Looks like I was worried for nothing. However, Elder Zhu, don't be careless. Long San is a very important chess piece for us. Since there's not much time left before the Heavenly Dragon Flame region opens, you have to raise his power as much as possible. No matter how many resources it costs, we'll get it all back 100, no, 1,000 times, said Zhuo Tianxiang. Yes, your subordinate understands. I'll go check on him right now. I won't let him slack off at all, promised Elder Zhu. Once Elder Zhu left, Zhuo Tianxiang, Dan Yanxue, and Kendongza all smiled. Long San had given them quite a few pleasant surprises. Boom! Flames filled the sky. Long Chen was surrounded by countless flame runes, looking like a god of fire. Flame runes had even appeared in his eyes. Haha, good, excellent. Long San, after exhausting so much earth flame essence, your physical body is already comparable to body cultivators, laughed Elder Zhu. Bang! He was laughing when Long Chen's fist landed squarely on his face. He flew back with a pained groan. Long San, are you mad? Raged Elder Zhu. I'm not mad. I just wanted to test my power, said Long Chen coldly. There's not much more time. I want to take Luo Xiao's head in just 3 moves. Long Chen slowly raised his head. His eyes contained an icy killing intent that made Elder Zhu shiver. On the outskirts of Pill Valley was a tall mountain with a grand palace built on top of it. In front of this palace was a huge martial arena. The martial arena shone with golden light. Each brick was refined with scarlet flame gold, and they were protected by powerful runes. They could withstand terrifying heat. There was also a powerful formation around the martial arena. Right now, countless Pill Valley disciples were gathering around the martial stage. Because it was located on the outskirts of Pill Valley, all disciples could come watch. There was a veritable sea of people around it now. I heard that 2 disciples of the Divine Pill Hall are fighting a life and death match to resolve some enmity? Asked someone. Yes. One of them is a rank 7 celestial who entered the Divine Pill Hall 2 years ago, Luo Xiao. In the last year, his alchemy arts have stagnated and he's close to washing out. I heard that several months ago, he gave up on the Pill Dao and became a flame cultivator. His combat power is terrifying, whispered an inner disciple who knew some more about the Divine Pill Hall. The majority of the inner disciples were unable to go to the Divine Pill Hall, but they could hear a few rumors about the people in it. Some people were just too bored and spent all day investigating the Divine Pill Hall. So for them to know a few things behind the scenes was normal. I heard Luo Xiao challenged a demon-class genius, Long San. This fellow spent 3 years crossing the Eastern Sea and missed his golden cultivation time. But I heard his spiritual strength has gone through some mutation, turning him into a monster amongst alchemists. In his first try, he managed to pass the trial to get into the Divine Pill Hall, stunning everyone, said someone emotionally. Long San's name had spread everywhere in Pill Valley in just over 2 months. Practically, everyone knew of him. One reason was his terrifying alchemy talent, but this alone wasn't enough to make everyone recognize him. The majority of people only knew of him due to his fighting skills. From the first day he joined the Divine Pill Hall, he had already started fighting, practically never skipping a day without a brawl. Over half the Divine Shield Alliance's people had been beaten by him. At first, the Divine Shield Alliance's people had been intentionally provoking him, but toward the end, Long San began to beat them up directly whenever he saw them, no matter if he was in a good mood or not. He was too lazy to even find an excuse to beat them. Every few days he would be sent to the delinquent prison, but then they heard that the atmosphere in the delinquent prison had become very good. Those disciples that were normally sent there had all corrected their behavior and were studying obediently. The full delinquent prison became empty. Pill Valley had always had many disciples with violent tempers due to playing with fire. When they encountered bottlenecks, they would easily become angry and do things they normally wouldn't do. As a result, Pill Valley tossed them into the delinquent prison so they could get it out of their system. Usually, once they finished fighting, they would be able to calm down and focus on alchemy. Pill Valley had countless disciples, and the original delinquent prison had been expanded several times in the past. But this was the first time in history that it was completely empty. Long San had been secretly called the master of delinquents. He had guided them all to the correct path, correcting their alchemy attitude and allowing them to find their own cultivation goals. Long San's name was also something spread by those reformed delinquents. Luo Xiao has arrived. Suddenly, a sharp cry rang out, and a group of people walked over. They wore the robes of the divine Pill Hall with a shield embroidered on their collars. Their leader was a tall man. He was Luo Xiao. Luo Xiao had over 10 disciples following him. He walked in grandly, and the crowd immediately opened a path for him. He walked to the entrance of the martial stage and flashed his badge at a stone pillar, which then emitted a ray of light that scanned his body. He vanished and reappeared on the martial stage. This was a life and death stage, a place to resolve conflicts between disciples. If the enmity had reached this point, then there was no way to mediate things. Every sect would have such a martial stage. Only through competition could there be progress. But where there was competition, there was also anger and hatred. When the seed of hatred was planted, it would rapidly grow to the point where one could not live with the other. The weak were prey to the strong. Survival of the fittest. This was the foundation of every sect, and Pill Valley was no exception. Pill Valley's rules were even harsher than some sections. Once a disciple applied for a life and death match, if the higher-ups approved of it, then there was no stopping it. Once the two fighters entered the martial stage, there were no more rules. Only one would come out alive. Unless an expert on the level of a Grand Elder intervened, no one could stop it. However, Grand Elders mostly didn't bother with such minor things. Long San has also arrived. Heavens, what powerful killing intent! An uproar suddenly exploded as a person slowly walked over. Flame energy and killing intent surged out of him. The instant Long Chen appeared, a terrifying heat ignited the air. The space around him was constantly twisting, yet no one could sense any heat. All their hair stood on end. Long Chen's gaze was ice cold. Those were not the eyes of a human. They were like the eyes of a bloodthirsty magical beast. Long San really has become bedeviled, and severely so. We'll have to think of a way to make him reserve himself a bit, or it won't be good for the plan. Within a private room, Zhuo Tianxiang, Dan Yanxue, Qin Dongzi, and Elder Zhu were watching a wall. They would see everything that was happening in the martial arena. It was Dan Yanxue speaking. At this time, Long Chen's eyes were scarlet. That was a clear sign of fire poison invading his body. If this continued, he would lose all reasoning and become a violent madman. Alliance Master Yanxue, don't worry. It's simply because Long San's power has increased too fast, resulting in the fire poison affecting his mind. He has absorbed a huge amount of earth flame essence, and that energy is enough to kill 20 rank 7 celestials. But because of his immense spiritual strength, he was able to absorb all of it. At the same time as his physical body absorbed it, his soul energy was exhausted, so a portion of it was absorbed by his soul. As long as Long San consumes a pill to dispel fire poison after the fight, with his powerful spiritual strength, the fire poison won't have any effect on him. In truth, the thing I'm worried about the most is his heart devil. His confidence has inflated to the point that he seems to think he's unrivaled. He even dared to attack me. Elder Zhu shook his head. He was too embarrassed to say that Long Chen had punched him in the face. Thus, to preserve his dignity, he had to say that Long Chen had attacked him. All right, then I'll trouble Elder Zhu. Long Chen is an important chess piece, so you have to treat him well. Once this succeeds, there's at least an 80% chance of you becoming the Eastern Xian region's Tower Master, said Zhuo Tianxiang. Many thanks, Protector Zhua. Disciple will definitely do his best to make Long San into the most terrifying killing machine. Elder Zhu was delighted. First, let's see the results of the past 10 days. Hopefully he won't disappoint me. Zhuo Tianxiang nodded. Long Chen came on his own, unlike Luo Xiang. This was something Kendongza had arranged on purpose. It was to let Long Chen know that he had no one to rely on and could only rely on himself. His only chance to live was to win. Long Chen was also transported to the stage. He was staring at Luo Xiao icily, not knowing what he was feeling inside. Originally, he had only come to Pill Valley for the second volume of the Nirvana scripture. He hadn't wanted to join any power or participate in any competition. Unfortunately, plans changed quickly. He had thought that coming to Pill Valley and obtaining the Nirvana scripture would be nothing more than a farce. Once he got it, he'd pat his butt and leave. Then Duan Tianxiao had died. That had surprisingly pained him. Although he wasn't close to her, they were still acquaintances. Her death had made him think of how Yi Zhiqiu had died in the Jiuli secret realm. It reminded him of the poignant beauty Yi Zhiqiu had possessed as she had died. Duan Tianxiao's suicide was just a way for her to escape from reality. She had lost to fate. Or perhaps she had felt that life was too tiresome, too bitter, and without anything to rely on, she was unable to see the sunlight. So she felt like she couldn't endure any longer and wanted to rest. In truth, Duan Tianxiao's life was similar to the lives of many cultivators. The cultivation world was like a vat of dye that blocked everything, making it so no one could see the sunlight. But Long Chen trusted that as long as he dared to struggle, no matter how terrible the situation was, there would be some hope. If you gave up, perhaps you would have tossed away that hope. So ever since he stepped onto the cultivation path, Long Chen had never thought about giving up. He had no reason to give up. Duan Tianxiao had given up. That made Long Chen feel regretful, as well as giving him a warning that he had to work hard at getting stronger. He had to be able to carry all the burdens, because he didn't want his beauties to endure burdens they couldn't carry. A man should work hard to give his beauties a sanctuary where they didn't need to worry about anything. You dare to get distracted? All of a sudden, Luo Xiao roared furiously, flame energy exploding out of him. The manifestation of a rank 7 celestial appeared, and a flame spear pierced toward Long Chen. Luo Xiao had originally wanted to say something upon Long Chen's arrival. But then he saw Long Chen just staring at the sky as if he was lost in thought, infuriating him. The 30-meter flame spear was like a shooting star. It twisted the space wildly. If you can last 3 moves, I'll spare your life. Long Chen snorted and jumped into the air. Blood-colored flames wrapped around his fist as he punched the spear. Boom! The flame spear blew apart, filling the air with flames. For a moment, every disciple was silent, staring in shock. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.